Give counselors about another minute to join, and then we'll get started. All right, everyone, we can go ahead and get started. Just want to thank you all for joining this evening. The time is 7:03 p.m. and the date is January 24th, 2022, of course. This is a hearings meeting of the Springfield City Council. Madam Clerk, would you please so kind to call the roll for us this evening?
Councilor Perez. Absent Councilor Letterman.
Present.
Present Councilor Kern.
Present.
Present Councilor Walsh.
Present.
Present Councilor Brown.
Present.
Present Councilor Davila.
Present.
Present Councilor Hurst. Absent Councilor Edwards.
Present.
Present Councilor Allen.
Present.
Present Councilor Govan.
Present.
Present Councilor Fenton. Absent Councilor Whitfield.
Present.
Present Councilor Williams.
Present. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you also please recognize Councilors Perez as well as Hurst?
Councilor Perez.
Councilor, you're muted.
Present.
Present Councilor Hurst.
Present.
Present.
And Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, Councilor Fenton has now joined us as well.
Councilor Fenton. Present.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get into the a moment of silence, of course, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to dedicate this moment of silence to all of the losses that our community is facing at this time. I know I probably don't speak alone in saying that it seems that every day a pillar of the community or someone that one of us knows or anything in between, it just seems that the loss of life is pretty grave and large at this time. So I just want to dedicate this moment of silence to those that we do know we have lost and those that might be sick and shut in as well. So if we don't mind, please stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
Allegiance.
To flag
flag
of
of the United States of America
and
and
to
and to the republic
for which it stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation
under
under
God,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty,
liberty,
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you all. Before we get started, Councilor Allen, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thanks, Mr. President. Without objection, I'm looking at tonight's agenda. It's pretty full of a lot of things that might get a lot of discussion. And I know we've been in situations in the past where people have to sit through all that and say, well, I have a short item. And I'm just, without objection, I see that tonight, maybe the item 6, the Plumtree Road pet kennel special permit, that might be something we could dispose of quickly. There's no vote. It's just it's a ownership change. So I'm just proposing that we take that out of order.
Right. Allen, without objection, we will take that item. No objection on the floor. All right, Madam Clerk, can you please call that item?
Item number 6 is to amend an existing permit
All
at
right,
also on the side.
Madam Clerk, you were going in and out there. Can you just please repeat that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that. So item number 6 is to amend an existing special permit for 4 Country Road, also 505 Elm Street.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone present to speak to the special permit? If so, can you just please state your name and address for the record?
Yes,
Clinton, I'm
good
sorry.
evening, everyone.
Ellen, I'm
Ellen,
sorry. I'm sorry, Ellen. Counselor, do you have something?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I do have to recuse myself from this. My employer represents this client. Also, for the record, I didn't ask for it to be taken out of order, but I think that makes sense. So I'm abstaining and recused from this.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you please take record of that?
Yes.
You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ellen Fryman with Shout Schwartz and Fenton, 1441 Main Street, Springfield. And we are here, as mentioned, for a transfer of special permit. This is for Spruce Hill Veterinary Clinic at 4 Plumtree Road. It's a very respected veterinary clinic that's been in the city for 44 years and at this location for 40 years. There are 3 veterinary doctors at this clinic, and they are selling the practice and real estate to Veterinary Innovative Partners, Inc., which is a team of veterinarians, and they own a number of animal care clinics around the country, and they will be coming in and taking over the management. But currently, there's no change anticipated for the practice. The current veterinarians will be still there. So it will be a seamless change, no discernible change to in the community. Knowing the patients, the community won't really realize that there's going to be a change, but it will be a positive and plus for the practice. So they'll be able to bring in some new doctors, and eventually when the current doctors retire, they'll continue. There's a succession plan in place. So it's a very positive change. This is both VIP Veterinary Innovative Partners and both Spruce Hill Clinic are very respected practices. So we have the support of East Forest Park Civic Association, and we're open for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ellen, for that. Madam Clerk, I will ask if we have received any testimony for those that are in favor of the special permit.
We have one letter submitted by the Park Civic Association. Letter is dated January 21st, 2022. Dear City Council, we're pleased to hear our Veterinary Innovative Partners' interest in and purchase of Spruce Hill Veterinary Clinic, as well as the news that Dr. Sherry Himmelstein and Dr. Kenneth Goldstein will be continuing here. This has been a vital community service to the neighborhood since 1983, for which we are truly grateful. We wholeheartedly endorse the request to amend the special permit made by the Veterinary Innovative Partners LLC. Graciously yours, Board of Directors of the East Forest Park Civic Association, Francis Roberts, Corresponding Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If we have not received any other testimony in written form, I will ask at this time if there's anyone on the call who signed up to speak on this item. If not, Madam Clerk, have we received testimony in opposition?
We have not.
All right, no opposition. At this time, I will see if there's any questions from the council for the petitioner. Councilor Allen?
Thanks, Mr. President. Yeah, this is in my ward. This is a very respected business. I believe the 3 veterinarians that were there have been there for 30 or 40 years, somewhere like that. This is a stable business, which is highly regarded, highly respected, and seems like a very reasonable request.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Are there any other councilors who would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, at this time, I will entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Allen and properly seconded by Councilor Whitfield. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll to continue?
Continuing item number 6, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bowman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton. Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes, the item has been continued. Thank you, councilors. Councilors,
Thank
before
you.
we proceed with the regular agenda, I just want to just give the heads up that we certainly do have a robust agenda tonight, and I just want to offer up that all of the items tonight will be continued due to our bifurcated version and working with Zoom. So feel free, I just implore you to use that if you feel conversations are getting extensive, as folks will have another opportunity to speak, of course, in the next meeting on the same issue. So with that being said, Madam Clerk, can you please call the first item before us?
The first item on the agenda is for a special permit for the reuse of an existing structure at the properties known as 195 State Street.
All right, is there anyone present to speak to the special permit? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, City Council President Williams and fellow City Council members, good evening and Happy New Year. For the record, my name is Gordon Pulsifer, President of First Resource Development Company, 2001 Washington Street, Hanover, Mass. As First Resource Development and Management Companies commence with their 23rd year in the city of Springfield, we look forward to working with City Council members and city leadership. Many of you have seen our redesigned apartment communities, resulting in significant change to inner city neighborhoods. Much of our success has been created through a safe environment for our residents and their families through the use of proper exterior lighting, security cameras, use of video intercom systems, and most importantly, visible management. This evening, I reintroduce to you 2 special permits. The first special permit on the agenda is 195 State Street. This building, built in 1900, was the original home of the Fire Marine Insurance Company of Springfield. In later years, it became the home of the Springfield School Superintendent. Currently, the building is vacant and owned by the City of Springfield. And First Resource Development Company was selected as preferred developer on October 6, 2021. The building has been sent out to RFP to the private market several times over the past few years. First Resource Development responded to an RFP last July of 2021. And our development plan includes repurposing the building as residential housing, which would require a special permit. Our plan would include 41 new residential apartments broken down as follows: 6 studio apartments, 32 one-bedroom apartments, and 3 two-bedroom apartments. Additionally, 5% of the total units will be handicap apartments with access front and rear entrances, along with 2 handicap spaces in the rear of the property. The building is located in the Lower Maple Historic District and is currently listed on the National Register in Washington, D.C. Our plans will eventually be reviewed and approved by Springfield Historic Commission, the Massachusetts Historic Commission, and the National Park Service. Some of the exterior visual aspects of the project will include new windows and a complete restoration of the exterior masonry. The inside will include modern style apartments, maintaining the historic aspects of the building. The common area and hallways will also maintain historic aspects of the building, along with addition of 2 elevators to service the residents. The new project will also include exterior, interior, common area lighting, along with security cameras. Each apartment will also have a video intercom system. Last time we discussed this, we discussed some development challenges, and I'd like to go over a couple of these. The first one was parking. The property sits on 0.41 acres. There is no space available for parking other than 2 handicap spots at the rear of the building. In order to address the need for parking, we have identified 4 different solutions. The first one, on High Street behind this building, First Resource Companies own several parking lots that will be made available free of charge to any residents that require parking. 2, at 310 State Street, a short distance away, we also own a parking garage which will be made available for our residents free of charge. 3, directly to the right of the building, located at 181 State Street, is a parking garage owned by Angela Park, who will make spaces available for our residents at a monthly charge if they desire to park there. And 4, to the left of the building, there is a parking lot that the city sold to the library many years ago. The parking lot was originally used for this building when the superintendent of schools resided here. We have met with the museum and library administrators, and they have agreed to also make spaces available to our residents for a monthly charge. We feel with these 4 options, we can satisfy the parking need for this building. I would like to point out that our last project that the city council approved was for a special permit for Mason Square Apartments located at Indian Motorcycle, which was 60 apartments. Currently, only 25% of those residents are using the parking spaces we created there, leaving many spaces vacant. With this being a downtown building and highly accessible to public transportation, the need for parking may be even less. Another development concern is traffic concerns. As discussed previously, there have been ongoing traffic concerns in the lower part of State Street, which was evidenced by a recent death of a library employee crossing State Street to access a parking lot. We had a similar situation before the redevelopment of Indian Motorcycle at the other end of State Street, where one of our residents was hit and killed by a car. Our company installed a Hawk crosswalk system approved by the city for local residents, including the residents in Indian Motorcycle, to safely cross 4 lanes. This system was installed and has been in use for over 2 years now and is working as intended, having no further incidents at this time. At our last meeting, I was informed that similar plans were underway to address traffic situation in this area. Since then, I have had a chance to meet with Chris Signoli to review his plans for this part of State Street. I was very pleased after meeting regarding his plan and how his plan would slow down and calm the traffic coming down that street. In the area in front of the library, 4 lanes would be reduced to 2 lanes with the addition of a Hawk crosswalk system. After careful review and discussion with Chris, I feel that this new plan will result in keeping Springfield residents safe who reside in this area, and think that with the slowdown of traffic coming down the hill, will make it a much safer environment. The other development concern that we talked about was open space. Last time we met, there were concerns about open space and the place for children to play. I would like to point out that the majority of the units in this building are studios and one bedrooms and very few family style units, resulting in fewer children. In addition, located directly across the street, as most of you know, is Merrick Park, the home of the Samuel Chapin statue. While I mentioned Merrick Park previously in our discussions, I don't think we ever talked about our development plans for this park. We have asked the City of Springfield Parks Department to let our company adopt Merrick Park and upgrade it and include it in our construction plans for 195 State Street. This would include landscaping, lighting, cameras, park benches, appropriate fencing and signage. We have recently met with the Parks Department to discuss this plan, and they are very supportive. We will develop a plan which will be reviewed by the Parks Department prior to any work starting. Eventually, the 195 State Street building will be renamed Merrick Park Apartments, which overlooks the Merrick Park. As a reminder to us all, this park was named after Solomon Merrick, who was a local resident in this neighborhood and also invented the famous monkey wrench. We believe that we've addressed the main development concerns that we discussed previously, parking, traffic concerns, and open space. This concludes our presentation and request for a special permit for the 41 apartments at 195 State Street. I will take questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer. And just before we get into questions, Madam Clerk, have we received any testimony for those in favor of the special permit?
We have.
Can you please read it into the record at this time?
Testimony was in the form of an email. The email reads, Dear Springfield City Council, as a neighbor of the proposed housing at the former school office building at the corner of State and Maple, I'm writing to say how excited I am about the possibility of new affordable housing coming to our neighborhood. Please support this terrific project. And it was sent by Catherine Viteri on December 7th, 2021. The next email was also submitted in the form of an email. The testimony reads, I was delighted to hear that First Resource Management was selected as a developer for 195 State Street, the former school department building. I was active in the Honorary Quadrangle Civic Association for many years and served as president during that time. During those years, I witnessed the transformative efforts of First Resource Management, turning blighted properties and neighborhoods into a safe and thriving housing community. I observed the incredible work at the Worthington/Federal Street site, the Maple High site, and Outing Park in the South End. Conditions were previously horrible in those areas and did little to serve individuals and families in need and safe, affordable housing. First Resource Management, under the leadership of Gordon Pulsifer, does tremendous work. Applicants are screened, security is paramount, apartments are attractive, landscaping is meticulous. Mr. Pulsifer is a wonderful partner to the city and a great advocate for the community. At Outing Park, for example, the Sector E police meetings have been hosted by First Resource Management for many years, advocating for the safety of residents and the neighborhood alike. At all of these sites, observers would be hard-pressed to recall the deplorable conditions that once existed in these areas before the transformative efforts of Mr. Pulsifer and First Resource Management. I challenge anyone to see firsthand the beautiful spaces that First Resource has created and still claim that First Resource is not worthy of this contract. The building at 195 State Street has been vacant for a long time. That historic building and the surrounding properties continue to deteriorate. Those who oppose First Resource's proposal claim that low-income housing will have a negative effect on the neighborhood. I strongly disagree on a number of levels. First, to simply characterize the project as low income is an insult to those who have less annual income than other residents in the city. Second, the suggestion that those of lesser income will automatically bring crime and other problems with them is absurd. Our residents deserve good housing, and Springfield has a multitude of good, hardworking, proud people of lesser income who are desperate for a residence that is well-managed, clean, and safe. Third, lesser income is automatically synonymous with lack of pride, and these Springfield residents want to be proud of their homes too. To reject potential residents simply on the basis of income is elitist. Finally, to suggest that First Resource Management would sponsor a project that would send the neighborhood into decline is simply ignorant. As anyone who has seen First Resource projects would know, the opposite is true. I give my unconditional support to the proposed project by First Resource Management and Gordon Pulsifer. This plan will surely restore 195 State Street with care and ensure the building's architectural integrity. It will surely bring more safety and security to the neighborhood. It will surely provide outstanding housing to upstanding qualified applicants. It will surely improve the surrounding landscape dramatically, including the adjacent lot, as well as the proposed parking site up the street. It will surely mean that First Resource Management will sponsor more neighborhood events and projects as they have done in the past. It will be an overall win for the neighborhood. I'm proud to support this project. Respectfully, from Carol Costa, 235 State Street.
Is that it, Madam Clerk, for those in favor?
Yes.
All right. I will also ask at this time if there's anyone on the call who signed up to speak in favor of this particular project. All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have any testimony in opposition of this special permit?
Yeah.
All right, with that being said, I will move into the counselor portion of the matter. Counselor Brown, I will turn it to you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak briefly based on the fact that Mr. Pulsifer has done a few projects in my area, the motorcycle being one of them, and the Firestone building. I actually live across the street. The degree and detail to the area, I do want to commend Mr. Pulsifer. There's lighting, there's cameras. I do recall the actual tragedy and the crosswalk that was put up, and it was put up instantly. And that's not really just one of the biggest things to me is that he cares about the actual area. During the pandemic, Mr. Pulsifer has donated to all the neighborhood councils, all the events, all the community itself. When it came to even the Firestone building, there were people who were displaced. I've worked with Mr. Pulsifer and he obtained housing for them. There were individuals who might not be able to obtain housing based on credit and things like that. And I know Mr. Pulsifer had still worked with them because I know as far as the community goes, one of the biggest things right now is jobs and housing. So I'm just telling you, I'm in favor for it. I've seen his work, and not only does he do great work, he honestly do care about the community. So I'm definitely in support of anything because I've seen his finished result, and then I've seen his continuous effort to make sure that he has a positive impact in the area that he's providing services. So I commend him for even doing the park. So I'm definitely going to support this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Walsh, followed by Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Mr. Pulsifer, thank you for joining us tonight, and Happy New Year to you. I think that you have more than adequately answered all the concerns that my colleagues raised the last time that we met. And I'm very happy to hear that you are involved in some of the traffic issues on State Street. That's an issue that Councilor Letterman and myself and many people are very interested in solving. So I do have a couple of questions for you. And one is there a timeline for any of these safety measures for State Street? Do we have to wait till your building's done? Is it ongoing? Can we see something tomorrow?
Well, when I met with Chris Signoli, he informed me that he wanted this installed next spring. And I said, well, if that's the case, I would order the equipment sooner rather than later. Just we all heard about supply chain issues and so forth. Right. And that Hawk system, because I've already purchased one and installed it, I know the steps involved, and it's a matter of getting the equipment. So I asked him to consider ordering equipment right away so we can get it done. But in the meantime, he said he was going to work on it sooner. He was going to work on reducing it to 2 lanes to slow the traffic down. Whether the crosswalk is installed in April or later, as long as they can slow that traffic down, it'll be a great help. So he said he was going to get going on that sooner.
Okay, and then I know you mentioned security. I know that you also have in your other projects, you do have security, but usually you have a security office. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that going to happen here?
Yes, we will have a security area where there'll be a central bank of cameras feeding in which the Springfield Police Department will have access as well.
Okay, but there won't be like any security guards or anything like that?
No,
no,
not unless needed, Councilor Walsh. I mean, if there's a problem, we'll bring the resources to bear. But where this is a smaller building and less units and less family units too, so there'll be less people in the building. Unless there's a problem, we won't have on-site security guards.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, 195 State, I think we've all been waiting a long time for something positive to happen there. And my experience to my colleagues and to my new colleagues, my experience with Gordon Pulsifer goes back to when you started down in the South End. And I want to say that every project that he has done has improved the neighborhood. But I think even more important, when we're looking at businesses and the people who represent the businesses who come before him, he has always kept his word. And to me, that is key. If he says he's going to make all these improvements, he's going to make them. So I am very happy to support you in this latest project because I think, well, it's nice for you, but it's going to be very good for the city of Springfield.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. 2 things. One, regarding the development, the proposed development, et cetera. I want to just thank Gordon Pulsifer for all the great work he's done over time in the city. I believe he has 1,500 apartments that he has rehabbed and is the caretaker for or owner of, whatever. They've been one successful project after another. So thank you for your work and your belief in our city and your support for our city. And secondly, is not about that. It's about, I'm sorry, Mr. President or Gladys, but Gladys, you're not coming through as clear as normal. I don't know if there's a connection problem or whatever, but the sound is a little more garbled than normal. So I don't know what the cause of that is, but it's not as easy to understand. I don't know if other people have noticed that, but I have noticed that. So just want to say that.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Councilor Perez.
Yes, I just want to say as a housing director, I know the need of housing, but it's not only the need of housing, it's the having a good administration when it comes to housing. So I am very excited that we're gonna have, I'm always looking for units for the family. In this administration, it is real great. I know the history. So I just want to be on record for saying that.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say first, thank you for looking into the open space because that was a concern of mine. And thank you for looking into the park and possibly adopting the park and doing the updates to the park. That's greatly appreciated because while, people may live in a 1-bedroom apartment, doesn't mean they don't have children that might come visit or grandchildren that might come visit. So having that recreational space available in those instances is still important. My question to you is, did you start looking into funding to fund this project? And will any of the funding that you're going after, will any of it be city funding? Springfield city funding?
Yes, Councilor Whitfield, a small portion will be city funded. The majority of funds will come from historic tax credits, low-income housing tax credits.
Do you know what pocket of city funding that will come from? Or that you'll request?
Hasn't been committed yet, but I assume home funds.
Home funds?
Yes.
Not
The
familiar with home.
The city
funds.
receives a federal allocation of home funds each year to be used for various purposes, one of which is housing.
All right, that's not for you to explain to me, but I'll find out what those home funds are. Because you're aware of it, I think more people in the community should be aware of it as well. But I just want to thank you for addressing everything that we had concerns with last meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Govan, followed by Councilor Davila.
Thank you so much, Councilor Williams. And thank you, Mr. Pulsifer, for being a model in our community for the beautiful buildings that you have built. I've known about a lot of them, and I'm really excited to see this one come back to life. I had two questions. One was, and I think this has been answered before, but I just want to confirm, the rent on those 41 apartments, will they be market rent or will they be affordable housing?
There'll be affordable housing tax credit rents.
Excellent, thank you. And then the other question, I know that you talked about the street, the tragedy that happened recently on State Street. Is anything going to be done about the other side street, the Maple side? I know there's some people across the street to the other side of State Street there. I'm not sure that we've ever heard of any issues on that street, but I'm wondering if that's something that you might take into consideration.
I would certainly take it into consideration if it was a problem, Councilor. Chris Signoli did not bring that up in our meeting, and I'm unaware of any problems on that street.
Okay, thank you. And I know that there haven't been any problems, and I hope that there aren't any. But I think a lot of times what we do is we respond to crises instead of prevent them. So just something to think about. But again, thank you so much for this project.
Thank you for your question.
All right, thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just if you could refresh my memory, sir, this is considered a fresh hearing for Mr. Pulsifer, right? Okay.
Correct.
Mr. Pulsifer, good evening, sir. Thank you for your presentation. And also thank you for addressing some of the concerns that were brought up during the last meeting. Some quick question to you, sir. You talked about the home funds, and may I say, if I may, Councilor Whitfield, I've never heard of the home funds too, neither, so I would love to find out exactly what they are, what the stipulations are. Never heard of it in my life. And keep in mind, I was a member of the Finance Committee last year. With that being said, Mr. Pulsifer, you did say that a small percentage will be coming from the city. Would you be able to identify that percentage for me, if you know it? In comparison to the total project?
Normally, well, not normally, but in the past, Councilor, on a $25 million project, we could receive anywhere from 200, 300 to 400,000 from the city.
Oh, so it would be less than fractional.
Yes, less than a fraction. And,
okay.
And the reason for this is the state receives home funds, and we apply for
Right.
home funds along with the tax credits. And they like to see a commitment from the city. If they're going to give the city $25 million, they'd like to see the city put something in. And it's called a match. And
Right.
even though it's not a match, it's something.
Gotcha.
And
Right. Now, Mr. Pulsifer, would you be applying to any ARPA money?
no.
No. Okay. And Mr. Pulsifer, I think you made a good effort addressing the traffic concerns. And I thank you for that. I think you really, really have tried hard to address that issue. And from the bottom of my heart, I do thank you. But I just want to make sure, did I hear you say that you're going to buy the Hawk system or you bought it at another location?
We bought the last Hawk system
For which project?
just because the city had no funds. This is the one at Indian Motorcycle.
Okay.
And it was a lovely $250,000, $50,000
Gotcha.
situation for me. And
Gotcha.
this time around, the city has funds available to purchase the Hawk system, and
Okay.
which I'm delighted to hear.
Yeah, and what you said, you 50,000 or 250?
250,000.
Yeah, that's $250,000. Okay. So that's-
Yeah, it's quite a complicated system,
I
and
understand.
it really doesn't stop traffic
Gotcha.
unless someone pushes a button.
Gotcha. Okay. And now, Mr. Postford, so keeping in that vein of conversation, you mentioned there were 3 possible locations to help alleviate the solutions for the traffic concerns. One of them was High Street, 310 State Street, 181 State Street, and I missed the 4th one.
Right, for the parking. And the 4th one, Counselor, was the parking lot to the left of the building, which the library currently owns.
Okay, the library. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Now, Mr. Postford, so that's a good effort. I will give you my greater respect, sir, for that effort. However, with High Street, 310 and 181 State Street, and even High Street, actually all of them, we still go back to the same problem. They still got to cross that. And I'm very concerned. I think I think last time you mentioned you're gonna have like a total of 150 to 200 people living in that building. And so that concerns me greatly. I know that there's a lot of talks. Unfortunately, it took another tragedy for this to move forward. But I'm concerned, Mr. Pulsifer. I'm really concerned with the safety. We're going to be adding 150, 200 new people. Many of them, I'm sure, will be children. I'm concerned. I'm just putting that up front to you. I'm very concerned. I really would like to see in the next meeting, if possible, maybe Mr. President, Director Signoli might be available to answer any questions, because I that's holding me up big time, the safety concerns of that. And so that's my last question, Mr. Pulsifer. If you want to have any closing thoughts, I will.
Sure. There'll be somewhere between 40 and 50 residents living in this property. And the majority of the parking is behind the building or to the left of the building, and crossing of streets would not be necessary. It's only if you're going to pay into the parking garage would you go to the corner, because the building's right on the corner where there's a crosswalk with a light. And so there are several parking options that would not require residents to cross any street. And this new crosswalk in front of the library would make it accessible for 310 State Street.
Mhm.
So I think it would be unnecessary if the resident so desired to not park across a busy street and choose the other options.
Gotcha. And so, quick question, Mr. Pulsifer, this is market rate housing that we're talking about, correct, for that building?
This is affordable housing.
Affordable housing, so it'll be Section 8, some market rate.
Right, it'll be a, you know, a mix. I mean,
Mixed use, okay, yeah. Mixed use. Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer. Mr. President, if I may ask, sir, if at all possible, for the next meeting, I would love to have Director Signoli present to answer questions on this particular issue on the pedestrian crossing. Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. We can certainly put in that request.
Did you call me, Mr. President? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Thank you very much. Gordon, I definitely support this project. This is nothing toward you, but Tim Sheehan, I have some questions for you, sir. Are you familiar with home funds? You muted and.
Yes, Counselor. The city is
name and address for the record. I'm sorry.
Tim Sheehan, Chief Development Officer for the City of Springfield, 26 Eckington Street, Springfield, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Yes, Counselor, I am familiar with home funding. The City of Springfield has gotten an allocation of federal home funding from HUD for decades. It's an entitlement grant that comes to the city from HUD. It's reported along with the CDBG allocation. It is on the financial statements of the city, and it appears every year. And typically it is for investment into affordable housing projects such as this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess we got to look more closely into the financial statements, or I do, being the finance chair, because I wasn't aware of the home funds, and what they are is the largest federal block grant to the state and local government, designed exclusively to create affordable housing in low-income households. And so it's the largest, and me not knowing, and I'm pretty sure if I don't know, other community contractors, other community investors probably don't know either. And so these are the things that I was talking to you about earlier, Tim, that could help our community, specifically Black and Brown community, obtain some of these funding sources to help them own some of these commercial properties. And I'm also talking about Springfield residents, because a lot of times these other organizations, and Gordon, you do a great job, and you have been for 20 years, but for 20 years you have been getting a lot of properties in Springfield, and your company is not located in Springfield. And so it's time for us to start investing in our own community, investing our resources in our own people, to also be able to own these commercial projects and things like that. And Gordon, we were also talking about maybe having some mentorship opportunities with some people from the local area. That's a great give back option, to have some mentorship and partnerships where they can learn how to obtain tax credits and home funding and resources like that. And I'm hoping when we start those discussions that you will be willing to be a part of those, because I do find you to be an upstanding young man, and you do great work in the city. I absolutely love your security features, because you did turn the motorcycle building around. There was a lot of criminal activity there, and you brought in a great state-of-the-art security system and security guards, and you did some traffic updates. But we need some of your expertise now in the city of Springfield to help move some of these local inspiring investors and contractors along. And so hopefully when we start those conversations, you'll be at the table. And I
More
just
than happy
wanted
to
say
be.
that. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any other questions for the petitioner at this time? Seeing none, is there any further deliberation amongst the council? Seeing none, at this time, I will entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Letterman. Is there a proper second?
Second.
I'll give that to Councilor Perez. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on continuing?
On continuing item number 1, Councilor Perez?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran?
No.
No, Councilor Walsh?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Brown?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Williams.
Yes, thank you, councilors. The item has been continued. Madam Clerk, the next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is item number 2 for a special permit for the reuse of an existing structure known as 310 State Street.
Mr. Pulsifer, you could just state your name and address, please, again. Mr. Pulsifer, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Good evening again. For the record, my name is Gordon Pulsifer, President of First Resource Development Company, Home Office, 2001 Washington Street, Hanover, Massachusetts. This evening, we will reintroduce our second special permit request for the building located at 310 State Street. This building was built in 1924 and was the original home of the Federal Land Bank of Springfield for many years. Currently, the building is owned by a private party and has been for sale and vacant for many years. We are requesting a special permit to build 52 residential apartments broken down as follows: 7 studios, 37 one-bedrooms, 8 two-bedrooms. Additionally, 5% of the total units will be for handicap accessible apartments with an entrance on the left side of the building next to the parking garage. The building is not currently located in a historic district, nor is it listed on the National Register in Washington, D.C. We've applied for historic designation, and to date, we have received Part 1 approval on the certification from the Mass Historic Commission. The final plans will be reviewed eventually by Springfield Historic Commission, the Massachusetts Historic Commission, and the National Park Service. Some of the exterior visual aspects of the planned project will include new windows, complete restoration of the exterior masonry, and the roof systems. The inside will include modern style apartments maintaining all historic aspects of the building. The common areas, including the existing grand lobby entrance, will be maintained and included in common area space. Hallways will pass through existing historic vaults. The new project will also include exterior, interior, common area lighting, along with security cameras. Each apartment will also include a video intercom system. The building will also include 2 elevators and an on-site management office for the residents. When complete, the building will be renamed Residence at the Vault. In addition to the main building, the site also contains a 2-story parking garage. The parking requirement for 52 apartments is 56 parking spaces. The parking garage will have 32 spaces on the upper level and 24 spaces on the lower level, for a total of 56 spaces, and therefore no variance will be required. There is also a vacant lot at the rear of the garage, which also can be used for parking. This concludes my presentation, and I will take questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer. Madam Clerk, have we received any testimony for those in favor?
We have. The Armory Quadrangle Civic Association has submitted a letter. The letter is actually addressed to Mr. Pulsifer and was submitted to me by Mr. Pulsifer. It reads as follows: Dear Mr. Pulsifer, after the Armory Quadrangle Board of Directors meeting with Gordon Pulsifer and other members of the First Resource Development Company on July 7th, 2021, we unanimously endorsed the company's plans to redevelop 310 State Street and 195 State Street into affordable and workforce rate housing. We ask that the Springfield City Council approve the needed special permit and Mayor Sarno provide any other needed support. Redevelopment of these 2 large vacant properties within our neighborhood council's boundaries is key to stabilizing all of the residential properties of the neighborhood. We were particularly pleased to get the request to meet with First Resource about the State Street properties because we already had very positive opinions about the company. In May 2021, the Aqua Board, at our request, met with local First Resource representatives Gretchen Helger and Jose Reyes. We have been impressed by the quality of the maintenance and operation of the company's income limited properties. At the July 7th meeting, we continued the discussion about the company's methods for maintaining safety and accountability by and for the residents. We look forward to continuing discussions related to addressing the speeding along State Street, the addition of other properties within the redevelopment, the Temple Street crime issues, and how parking for 195 State Street will be accommodated. Please let us know how else we might help to move this exciting project along. Sincerely, Betsy Johnson, President of the Armory Quadrangle Civic Association.
Is that all 4 letters?
Yes, I'm going to go back into. No, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone present on the call that signed up to speak to this item in favor? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, have we received anything in opposition?
I have one that I believe was shared with Councilor Curran and sent to me in an email December 21st, 2021. It reads, "Dear Councilors, I'm writing this as a Springfield resident who lives on Elliott Street in Metro Center. Although I am also an Apremont Quadrangle Civic Association board member, I am commenting now as a private citizen and not in any official capacity. Last week, I observed a Zoom meeting that considered the First Resource Company's request for a special permit to convert 195 State Street into 41 affordable rate apartments. I'm a huge fan of FRC and the contributions to Springfield housing, and was in fact the catalyst for bringing Aqua and FRC together for a get acquainted meeting to explore our mutual interests and goals. After listening to everything that was said during the hearing, though, I'm left with major concerns given the absence of convenient nearby parking. Is housing really the best use of the building? It almost feels like trying to stick a square peg in a round hole. Will less fortunate tenants who won't have spaces in the adjacent library lot really want to walk uphill in one direction to a parking area 2 blocks away from Spring and State, where FRC will be redeveloping 310 State Street into apartments, or be thrilled by crossing a busy Chestnut to get to Maplegate Garage? Why not just live at 310 instead and have your car right outside your door? Springfield seems to be caught between a rock and a hard place, forced to accept a proposal that is less than optimal because it is seen as the only hope for preserving a deteriorating historic building. I feel that this email, even though it says 310 State Street, Counselor, it really should have been filed under the 195 State Street permit, special permit. It just is kind of, they're both together. So I'm just gonna wrap it up. I wish I knew that the answers, but we hope that the council will consider these questions in the next meeting. FRC has also told Aqua Board that if the 195 permit is denied, the company will discontinue its plans to redevelop 310 State Street. I'm not sure why the 2 projects are inextricably linked, and hope the council will be able to get an explanation before reaching a decision. With thanks for your time. Sincerely yours, Alan Goldsmith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that. Is there anyone on the call who signed up to speak in opposition to this special permit? All right, seeing none, Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Davila.
Mr. President, first, can you answer that question? Would you not develop 195 if you don't get 310?
No.
Or vice versa? I don't know.
Or vice versa. No, normally, Council Whitfield, we do not develop projects of this size, only because it's an affordability issue of staffing and management. Because we have significant resources in the area on High Street, School Street, Union Street, where we have almost 250 apartments, we have quite a few resources next door. So if the city decided not to award 195, and if the city decided that housing is not the right thing for 195, we would still proceed with 310.
Okay, that's good to hear. And it's also good to hear where you have a lot of your apartments, because they are high crime areas, and maybe you're a good person to talk to on how we can combat some of the crime in those areas off the record. But on the record, can you answer the same question that I had the last time? Will you be receiving any city funding for this particular project, 310?
I'm not sure I'm clear on your question, Councilor Whitfield. Is it the last time I received funding?
No, will you be receiving city funding to redevelop 310
Oh,
as
310.
well?
There is no commitment from the city at this time.
Will you go after funding from the city to redevelop this project?
We will request some sort of funding, only because the state's going to require some type of match.
Some investment from the city, like the last project. Okay.
Right. And the good part about it is I know the city has commitments for their home funds. They only receive so many dollars a year. And we've taken less on many projects. As long as some commitment is made, that's what matters to the state.
It's good to know that matters to the state, but it matters to me as well. It's good to know that there's funding opportunities out there to help organizations, companies, contractors develop property in the city of Springfield. So that's good to know. I really appreciate your transparency on the questions that I'm asking you. And I have one more. As far as when your projects are fully developed, and you have like folks doing your landscaping or organizations, companies doing your landscaping, your maintenance, your property management, do you traditionally hire locally within the city of Springfield? And also, do these companies normally reflect the areas that they're working in as far as the population goes?
Yes, Councilor Whitfield, we currently have 5 offices in Springfield now, and along with 75 employees, which for the majority of them live in Springfield. And so I think our company clearly represents Springfield residents along with Springfield employees being employed. We prefer that. Obviously, we're on call 24/7. We don't go home at 5 o'clock. So it's important that our maintenance folks, our managers, senior manager people are in the area.
What about the landscaping and property management companies? Are they in the area?
We own a property management company.
Okay.
And yes, we have 5 offices now in Springfield.
Okay.
And soon to open the 6th office. And so we have a pretty large presence right in the downtown area now. And again, the employees are residents of Springfield for the most part.
All right. Are they part of the decision-making team? Are they part of the executive team, or are they the lower level staff?
All of the above.
Do you have any? Go ahead.
We have vice presidents, senior regional people, all across the board. And
are some of them people of color?
Approximately 80% of our company are people of color.
I'm talking about on the executive level, sir.
That too. There are
80%.
there's several members on our executive team that are people of color.
And I'm not picking on you. This is what I'm going to start doing with everyone that's asking to build in the city of Springfield that is not from here. I appreciate the investments that you all make to our city of Springfield. I really do. But I think that it is time for some investments to be done from local individuals, local companies as well. I'm not saying that we don't want you here, because we definitely do, but definitely in some collaborations and partnerships, and also making local construction companies or contractors aware of the funding is important as well. So I definitely appreciate, I'm not putting you under the gun. This is something that I'm going to start doing across the board. You just happen to be the first one, but I still support you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield, Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Letterman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Pulsifer, a quick question. Do you have any state commitment as of yet?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any state commitment? You say you don't have any city commitment. Do you have any state commitment?
No, we don't. We have not received state commitment as yet.
As of yet, okay.
We will not file for state funding until special permits are approved.
Okay, and so just to be clear, regardless of what happened with the other location of 195 State Street, you will pursue 310?
Correct.
Okay, very well. Mr. President, do we have Phil on the line, sir?
I'm sorry?
Do we have Phil on the line?
Mr.
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Phil. Good evening, sir. A quick question for you, if you could be kind enough to enlighten me. I was looking over the conditions, and condition number 7 says that Mr. Pulsifer will need a variance for parking.
Well, that's a mistake on my part. If that, if it says that he needs a variance for 310 State Street, that's incorrect. I may just not have taken that off. I kind of use my analysis as templates, and sometimes he will need a variance for 195 for parking, but not for 310.
Okay, so yeah, I'm looking at the agenda right now on page 27. It says he will need a special permit. A variance for parking must be obtained by the Board of Appeals. So that's not the case here, correct? That's what you're saying to me?
Correct, not for 310.
Okay, we're gonna fix that.
Yeah, I will fix that. I actually think I may have sent an updated analysis, but if I haven't, I will certainly correct that on if and when the special permit is granted.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all my question, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Councilor Davila, Councilor Letterman, followed by Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Pulsifer, thanks for your cooperation this evening. And I think, we had extensive questioning previously about 195 when we had approved the sale. I have a couple of thoughts that I'd like to share, probably towards the second part of the hearing relative to the state of housing in Springfield and especially downtown. But the only question I have for you today is relative to whether or not you plan to seek any tax breaks for either one of the buildings as a part of your development from the city of Springfield.
No.
Good answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Letterman. Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Gordon. Just on the parking issue. So you've got 56 spaces, and with your units that have 2 bedrooms, basically you're looking at, in terms of total bedrooms for the site, you've got about 60. So about 56 spaces and about 60 bedrooms. And I'm counting studio units as 1 bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be what I would describe as tight. And I wonder, I'm looking at Byers Street, and there's a whole lot of on-street parking here on your side of Byers Street, property that you're intending to pursue. It's all 2-hour parking. And it would seem to me like there's at least 15 spaces or so there. So what I'd love to love you to give some more thought to before we take a final vote on this at our next meeting is how many spaces can we get there on Byers Street? And is there something the city could do to change the parking regulations in that area to make it more accessible to your residents in the event that your lot of 56 spaces fills up? Because the difference between, let's just say it's 15 there, the difference between 56 spaces for 60 bedrooms versus 71 spaces for 60 bedrooms is a big difference. And we already have a precedent in the area for doing medallion parking for residents on Mattoon Street. This might be an appropriate situation to pursue that type of medallion parking arrangement for residents in the event that you exhaust your parking with your lot that's on the other side of your building on Elliott Street. So, I'd invite you to respond with your thoughts and comments, but looking at this, I think that could be something that's worthwhile to pursue. Would you like to respond to that at all, Gordon?
Sure. We have a lot right behind the parking garage, which when we laid out previously had 12 to 15 more spaces that we were going to create for guest parking. And it's, we didn't include it in our analysis because the site engineer said we had met the parking requirement under the regulations. And
so I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you own the vacant grass parcel immediately behind your parking lot on, I see. Okay. Well, that would make more sense for overflow parking development than on-street parking on Byers Street. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a point of information, if I may, from Councilor Fenton. Councilor Fenton, would you be able to enlighten me a little bit with the medallion parking?
If I may, Mr. President, sure. So there are a few areas in the city, most notably Mattoon Street, where residents have a medallion on-street parking program that the city appropriates every year. You pay for your medallion, you get a dedicated space, and the money that's raised from those medallions goes to pay for police enforcement if people park illegally in those spaces. But it's a unique thing to Mattoon Street and other densely populated areas in the city where medallion parking is available. I'm actually not familiar with any area other than Mattoon Street that has it, but that's how it works. They pay an annual fee every year, Councilor Davila. I think it's like $150, something like that. And then you get your medallion, you get to park in the space that's designated. And the money from those fees goes to fund enforcement and towing when people park illegally.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, councilors. Are there any other questions for Mr. Pulsifer at this time? Seeing none, is there any further deliberation amongst the council? Also seeing none, at this time, I will entertain a motion to continue the item.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Letterman and seconded by Councilor Edwards. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll to continue this item as well?
On continuing item number 2, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
No.
No, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes, the item has been continued. Madam Clerk, the next item, please.
The next item is for a special permit to operate an adult use marijuana establishment at a portion of the property known as 299 Page Boulevard.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we take item number 7 out of order. If there aren't any objections, it's the only non-marijuana item left, and it's also just a change of petitioner. I will be abstaining from all the marijuana items, so hoping that we could do that one, if it's all right with everybody.
With no objection.
I object, Mr. President. I'd like for Councilor Fenton to have to come back on at about 12 o'clock since he made the 10 o'clock. I'm just kidding.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Since there, I believe that to be a joke.
That was a joke, right?
I believe that was a joke, yes. Madam Clerk, can you please call the item that Councilor Fenton referred to?
Item number 7 is to amend existing special permits to allow a change in the petitioners to the following special permit issued by the city of Springfield. The request is for the permit dated April 10th, 2001. The property is known as 89 Guin Street, 99 Guin Street, and a portion of the property known as 299 Page Boulevard.
All right, is there anyone present to speak to this? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Councilor Williams, this is Seth Stratton of Fitzgerald Law with an office at 1 Monarch Place in Springfield. Thank you, Council, for your attention to this matter. I represent North Star Pulp and Paper Company and certain related holding companies. This, as many of you know, North Star has long operated a recycling facility at 299 Page and 89 to 99 Guion Street in Springfield. North Star is transferring its assets and operations to a very reputable recycling industry leader, Casella Waste Systems. There are representatives from both North Star and Casella on the phone this evening. And I see Councilor Schreier here as well, who also represents North Star. Not unlike the item number 6 that you heard earlier with respect to the Allen Street Veterinary facility, this petition seeks to change the petitioner to the new owner and operator of the business. The existing special permits that allow for the recycling center operations have several conditions regulating that use for the benefit of the neighborhood and the city. These conditions, of course, will transfer with the transfer of the special permits to the new permittee, in this case, Casella. Many of the same local faces will continue to be involved with the management and operations under the new owner. My understanding that Mr. Dromey's office has reviewed and recommended approval of this petition. I've also personally had very productive conversations with Ms. Kathy Brown of the East Springfield Neighborhood Council. I believe she is on the line here this evening and is supportive of the request. I know Casella has committed to continue a strong dialogue with her and the neighborhood moving forward, and is committed to being a strong corporate citizen and neighbor as North Star has been. We appreciate the council's attention to and consideration of this request. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stratton. It's nice to see you again since some years from MGM, voting on MGM. So it's welcome back, I should say.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of spending earlier this evening with the Casino Oversight Committee with respect to another client. So it's been a city council evening for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Seth. Madam Clerk, before we get into questions from the council, I'll first ask, have we received any testimony for those in favor?
For item number 6, no, we have not. Oh, wait, one moment. We have. We've received a letter from item number 7. No, we have not.
We have not. Okay.
No.
Is there anyone on the line who would like to speak in favor of this special permit? Ms. Brown, I don't know if you signed up to speak for this. I want to make sure I give you the floor.
I did not sign up. I'm sorry, but I would be happy to say about 5 lines if you would so indulge me.
Sure, feel free.
Thank you. I'm Kathleen Brown with the East Springfield Neighborhood Council. I live at 136 Edendale Street. And the East Springfield Neighborhood Council is satisfied that the change in petitioner of 8999 Guion Street and 299 Lot A, Page Boulevard is appropriate. And we do request that the City Council approve this petition. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brown. Madam Clerk, have we received anything in opposition of the special permit?
We have not.
All right, seeing none, I will pass it to counselors. Counselor Fenton, were you all set or did you have?
No, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your indulgence in hearing this item out of order as well. We had an opportunity as a council a few years back to refresh the conditions with the assistance of the East Springfield Neighborhood Council. And we're very happy with the existing conditions. And it's just a change of petitioner from my perspective. So I understand that the Casella Group has met with the East Springfield Neighborhood Council, introduced himself, and we look forward to many more years of successful business with them in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Fenton. Counselor Letterman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question for the Petitioners Council. So does Casella plan to expand or alter the current operation in any way?
Well, I can say that they certainly wouldn't expand beyond the conditions imposed, which will carry with the special permits. Mr. Bob Caponata from Casella, I believe, is on the line. And Bob, if you have any comments on Casella's intentions with the property moving forward, I'm sure the council would welcome it.
If you could just please state your name and address.
Sure. Bob Capadona with Casella. Can you hear me, Counselor? Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes. Bob Capadona from Casella. I serve as Vice President of all the recycling operations for Casella. We do not plan to alter any of the business operations or the buildings or expand in any capacity at all other than further recycling. You know, we operate over 20 facilities within the Northeast here, and this is the prime site, and we would continue the operations as we see it today.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions from the council at this time? Seeing none, is there any further, Councilor Davila?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I couldn't get to the hand on time. Seth, good afternoon, sir. Just a quick question. I'm actually looking to the agenda here. So this is going to be just a change in ownership of 89 Guion Street, correct? And I lost the agenda here. And I believe it's a parcel A of 299 Page Boulevard, is that correct?
So there will be a change in ownership of the business, and there will be a change in ownership of some of the real estate, but not all of it, on which the special permits currently sit. So there will be a change in ownership to 89 to 99 Guion, but there is a parcel now identified as Lot 3 of 299 Page, which will not change ownership, but will be leased to Casella. So I hope that was clear. Most of the real estate is being transferred. Some of it is staying and being leased back.
So did you say parcel 3?
Lot 3, 299 Page.
And what sits in lot 3 right now?
It's currently an empty, a lot that's used for truck parking and will continue to be used for truck parking.
So all the 16, because that whole thing, 299 Page Boulevard, it's quite an extensive lot.
Yes, it's been very recently subdivided into 3 separate lots. And lot 3 is
owned by the same person, correct?
I'm sorry?
Owned by the same person, 299 Page Boulevard.
Same entity, correct. Yep.
Correct. Same entity.
Yes. And so it's gone through an A&R process and been subdivided into 3 separate lots. The lot in question here is lot 3, which is the parcel that's been used by North Star for truck parking and will continue to be used by Casella for truck parking for the recycling operations. It will be separately designated and fenced.
So the remainder of the lot will stay as is right now with all the existing businesses. Nothing will change for the remainders of the lots on 299.
These permits don't address those. Those other lots are separate and will continue to be owned. I can't speak to their current or future use
Right.
as
Okay.
part of this, but unrelated to this request, correct?
Understand. All right. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, are there any further deliberation amongst the council? All right, also seeing none, I will entertain a motion to continue this item as well.
Motion to continue.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor Govan. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll to continue?
On continuing item number 7, Counselor Perez?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Walsh?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Williams?
Yes, the item has been continued. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 3 at this time?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is for a special permit to operate an adult use marijuana establishment at a portion of the property known as 299 Page Boulevard.
All right, is there anyone present to speak to this special permit? If so, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Phil Silverman from the law firm of Vicente Cedarburg, 800 Boylston Street in Boston.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you. Again, my name is Phil Silverman. I'm here from Page Cultivate, and I'm here with the company's CEO, Mark Waldron, Tim St. Germain from Fuss & O'Neill, Henry Payne, who is the company's Director of Human Resources, and Dan Linsky from Kroll Management, who is the security advisor here. We're here seeking a Tier 3 special permit to operate an adult use marijuana cultivation and product manufacturing facility at 299 Page Boulevard, lot number 2. This lot is in the Industrial A zoning district, which is an appropriate district for this particular use. It's not within 500 feet of a school or of a school K through 12. And what's going to happen at this, just sort of, to break it down, there's going to be cultivation of marijuana flower for wholesale to other businesses. And there's also going to be extraction of oils from that flower to use those oils in product manufacturing, infusing the oils into edibles or topical creams or beverages or putting it into vaporizers. There's a number of different products that can be used from the oils that are derived from the marijuana flower. If you're familiar with the site, it's about a 2.44 acre vacant lot next to an existing building. And what's going to happen there is we're going to be constructing a roughly 46,900 square foot building. About 33,000 square feet of that will be for cultivation and manufacturing. Another 14,000 square feet of that will actually be sort of support space, offices and such to assist with the operations. Before we get too far, if I can do a screen share.
You should be capable of yes.
All right. Is everybody able to see that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Great. Hang on. Apologies, I'm trying to. Having some difficulty here. My apologies. Let me see if I can get this to work.
It's up now.
It's up. Oh, fantastic. All right. Thank you. So just moving to the next slide. Again, this is some of the leadership team. You'll be meeting them shortly. We've put together a significant cast of support here in terms of expertise in the area. My firm, Vicente Cedarberg, is a national marijuana law firm. We have offices in every state across the country. It's all we do is marijuana law. We work with communities, various cities, towns across the country to implement their vision of what adult use cannabis business should look like. And so we take into consideration all of your advice and commentary to try to come up with a plan that will work for you. We're also here, as I mentioned, Kroll, which does a lot of the security on numerous of the projects here in Massachusetts. Fussin O'Neill, our architect, our civil engineers, and McGeorge, our architect, they've done a lot of cannabis facilities. And so you're really getting sort of one of the best teams in the state, quite frankly, in terms of all of the experience that they have doing these types of projects. In terms of just, for background, as we get further into this, you can see by the map, there's actually a lot of licenses that are out there. Not all of these are developed yet. I think you're looking here at 928 total licenses. Some of them are just sort of sitting there. They're not actually being developed. People may have run out of the funds to do it or just determined they didn't have the expertise, but a lot of them are. There's a lot of retailers that are getting up and running right now. And so what we're finding is there's still a significant demand for these products out in the state. There's not enough supply to meet demand. And so that's one of the promising things about this particular project. This is going to provide significant supply to the Massachusetts market, which is really still desperate to get more of it than is out there. So we think it's sort of ideal in terms of what the Massachusetts market needs, but it's also ideal for Springfield. There's enough demand that we're going to generate significant revenue, and Springfield, through our host community agreement, is going to be receiving 3% of that revenue as an impact fee. Now let me turn over just to start sort of getting more into the site to Tim St. Germain from Fussin O'Neill. Go ahead, Tim.
Good evening. My name is Tim St. Germain. I'm with Fussin O'Neill, located at 1550 Main Street in Springfield. Fussin O'Neill has been involved in the cannabis market since legalization in Massachusetts in 2017, but in many other legal states prior to that. So I've been working in this industry for about 6 years on these projects. We've done about 1 million square feet of cultivation space at this point in design. The site that we're talking about is 299 Page Boulevard, Lot 2. That is the parcel behind the Springfield Police Training Center. The lot is currently undeveloped, Lot 2. It's formerly the Smith & Wesson gun range that was located there. And this location, as Phil has said, is an industrial zoned area, and with its access to both 291 and minutes away from Route 90, it's ideal for our business model. Next slide, Phil. The proposed facility, which we show some architectural renderings here, we believe will fit nicely in the neighborhood. The building is identified to be have a height of somewhere around 20 to 25 feet in elevation, which I think fits nice in this location. It sort of fits in with the general nature and is somewhat hidden because it will be in the rear of some of the buildings on Page Boulevard and on Guion Street. As Phil has said, we're looking at a facility roughly of 47,000 square feet with about 50 employees at the site, with preference, as you'll hear later, for local residency. And this will be a restricted access and be consistent with CCC rules, as you'll hear later on with Kroll's presentation, Dan Litsky. Next slide. As the site is laid out, our parking, we anticipate 30 employees on site at any one time. We have a site plan where we've got 48 parking spaces that are served from Page Boulevard. All employees and any visitors, we have had previous conversations that visitors may include the CCC, may include the police department or the fire department as needed for inspections. Any of those would enter the facility off of Page Boulevard in the parking that we have there. The building has a access road completely around the site for access of emergency vehicles, and any of the deliveries will come off of a secondary access road that we show off of Guion Street. So any deliveries of construction materials, any deliveries of sort of usable materials, whether that be pots or any of the nutrients, fertilizers, any shipping off-site will all come off of the warehousing space, which is located to the north of the building and would access Guion directly. Next slide, Phil. Just a quick overview as to the way the building is laid out. Off of the parking lot, as you see the building, the top left is our office area. So that is in connection with.
Point of information, Mr. President. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Can they make the slides bigger? It's very difficult to see. I don't know if they can zoom in on the slides or full screen the slides. That is much better. Thank you.
Councilor Letterman, thank you.
Yeah. So the top left of this is where entry will be from the Page Boulevard parking lot. This will be where the security office is, and all employee entrance will be in this location. As we work from left to right are all our cultivation cells. You'll see the benches here, and our utility areas. So the fertigation area, our electrical rooms, our mechanical rooms are located within this grouping of rooms. Next slide, Phil. And again, we continue with our flower rooms as we work from left to right. And then we get to the manufacturing portion where we do our drying of the product at the lower part, and then our actual extraction and any manufacturing of product down here to the lower right. And then we ship out of this L areas where we have our shipping that will go down Guion Street access point.
Great. And so just some detail on the construction, estimated construction costs, somewhere between $20 to $22 million, probably take about 12 months, quite a few construction jobs, which will be generated by this. We suggest that there's going to be significant fees that are paid to the town. I personally don't love making too many projections about the numbers, but it will be significant. A lot depends upon how many other cultivation operations get up in Massachusetts. There still aren't enough. One suspects that at some point there will be more, and that will have a tendency to bring the price of the product down. And so your 3% that you collect as an impact fee will be somewhat reduced over time. But in the near future, we don't see a lot of price lowering. So I think there's going to be some significant fees paid. And by the way, between $1 million to $1.25 million of real estate and personal property tax revenue to the city on an annual basis. The project, features sustainability, water conservation, LED lighting. There's quite a bit of regulation surrounding this at the CCC. We have to meet certain energy efficiency standards in order to be able to operate this, and we expect to meet and exceed those standards here. Just a couple of other details: diversion prevention. Again, I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to visit a retailer, but you're probably aware Massachusetts has some of the most stringent security procedures. Mr. Linsky will get into that, but needless to say, in terms of preventing diversion from sort of the normal course here, we will use what's called seed to sale tracking system. So just so you understand how that works, every single plant that's grown, as it comes up, it is barcoded and it is weighed, and there's an inventory system. That inventory is kept of all of the plants that are in this facility. And that barcoding stays on the plant until it's harvested. And even after that, we track it as it is put into packages and labeled for later wholesale. We're constantly tracking that inventory, and we know, we do daily counts, we do weighings, weekly, sometimes monthly, but we know if something weighed, an ounce last week and it only weighs a half an ounce this week, the system is going to alert us. We will go then look at the multiple cameras that are around this facility and are operational all the time, and we retain those tapes. We find out who's responsible for that diversion, and they are immediately terminated. There's a no tolerance policy in Massachusetts for any kind of diversion of marijuana here. Some of the other diversion protection, again, when we're doing transport, we're using unmarked vehicles, randomized routes, multiple agents within the vehicle, GPS tracking of the vehicle, multiple redundant communication systems with both the facility that is sending the product out and the receiving facility, and quite a significant amount of training for the employees that's associated with this. Next significant issue, I'm going to go back to Tim for a minute just to talk about odor control. Tim, you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, our design is designed to achieve 100% odor elimination. And one of the ways and one of the advantages this building affords us is a lot of these facilities have been constructed in old mill buildings, which by their very nature are drafty. And it's difficult to control air movement throughout the building. The Page Cultivate team is going to be investing in a new construction that'll allow us to create an airtight facility and allow us to control emissions from this building. Any emissions from this building will be treated with activated carbon, and that is one of the now well-known treatment methods for within the cannabis industry. So one of the failure points that we have seen in the past is people in the early days did not identify all the emission points and did not put treatment on those points. We've been in this long enough to understand that you need to not only treat the areas that are where you're cultivating a plant, but also the areas that you're doing manufacturing, extraction, and drying of the plant, which is sometimes not completely controlled in other facilities. And the third part of this is proper maintenance. And in our previous submissions, we had detailed our standard operating procedures and our maintenance plans on these systems. So we'll have preventive maintenance on our activated carbon filtration systems, and this will include routine replacement of the carbon filters, not as they get exhausted, but predicting prior to the units being exhausted in terms of its capacity and replacing the carbon, so that all of our staff will be trained in the proper maintenance and repair of this equipment. And then, as we've indicated in our previous submissions on the standard operating procedures, are the compliance and documenting logs on all of our daily maintenance and routine maintenance.
Great, thank you. In terms of security, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Linsky. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself and explain some of the security features?
Thanks, Phil. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. So I'm Dan Linsky. I'm a recovering cop. I was a cop for 28 years in the city of Boston. I spent a lot of my career as a narcotics enforcement officer working undercover. working task force with DEA and ATF, and wound up finishing up my last 5 years as the chief of the Boston Police Department. My most coveting event, I was in charge during the Boston Marathon attack on Boylston Street, and wound up in Watertown 102 hours later with the terrorists. I stood on the State House steps with the governor and a bunch of other police chiefs and said, don't allow legal cannabis in Massachusetts. It's going to be a horror show. And my fellow voters in Massachusetts disagreed with me. So when I retired from the Boston Police after getting the terrorism case, the U.S. Attorney's Office, I started a consulting company. And quickly thereafter, my next door neighbor, who was a great friend of our family, had no family besides her friends, had developed stage 4 lung cancer. And taking her to and from her treatments, I discovered that maybe I was wrong in my thoughts about cannabis. I think it's the only time I was wrong. My wife can tell me, she tells me it's a daily occurrence, but in any event, I started in this process when I joined Kroll. Kroll is a global security management firm. We deal with Fortune 500 companies, banks, museums. We've designed security institutions for our soldiers and sailors in Iraq and Afghanistan. We design facilities all over the world to keep products safe. I have clients in Mexico that we are protecting their chemical and biological issues from folks who have nefarious thoughts and ideas. And we're working with our clients here to make sure we do not meet, we will exceed the safety and security standards that the state has set. We'll have live security on premises when we are there, remote security after hours with video analytics, that our cameras are smart, that if someone shows up in the area that shouldn't be after hours, right away our security operations center will have a identification that somebody's there and respond appropriately, whether that's calling the police, pressing a button and making an announcement over a PA system that you're in a restricted area, whatever that might be. We have dual security systems that are redundant in case of one of the systems going down, in case of power failures. We will have hundreds of cameras throughout the facility that monitor things 24 hours a day. That's not good enough for me. It's great to have 100 cameras, but what's more important is that somebody is going in and pulling video from selected shifts, selected days, and looking to make sure that we're in compliance with the rules and regulations set by the Cannabis Commission and the town and the city on what we're supposed to be doing. So it's our owners have every desire to make sure they comply with everything, but a 22-year-old employee might not want to follow the rules, might prop doors open, might try and borrow somebody's key or ID. And we go in and do due diligence to make sure that our video shows our compliance with the rules and regulations. We have policies that our team will be good neighbors. This is not a recreational facility. This is a cultivation facility. So I'm more concerned with our team members driving appropriately, not speeding, obeying the rules of the road, not congregating outside and creating a loitering or hazardous. And anyone who does will be counseled, disciplined, and possibly terminated. With that, I didn't speak until I was 3. My mom thought I was mute and had me tested, and now she says they can't shut me up. So I will shut up for questions that you might have at the end of the presentation. Thanks, Phil.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Now I'm going to turn it over. This is regarding our employment diversity and inclusion plans. I'm going to turn it over to Henry Payne, who is the Director of Human Resources for the company. Henry, why don't you introduce yourself? Are you there? Did we lose you? Okay, not seeing Henry.
In the absence of him, if you wouldn't mind just perhaps covering his portion.
Sure, happy to. Happy to.
There will be another opportunity again.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I think the idea here is really to reflect the community in the people that we hire at the company. Whether, all of the different ways you might look at the community in terms of sex, gender, race, religion, etc. We're trying to get a diverse group of people. We're trying to hire locally, and we're trying to train people and give them opportunities to advance within the company. This is, something that we're taking seriously at the company. The Cannabis Control Commission, I assure you, takes it very seriously. Asks us to provide, diversity plans for positive impact, and we are doing just that. And I'm sorry that Henry can't talk to you because he has quite a bit of experience in the area and a real desire to bring that to the company. But it does involve, as I said, who we hire, how we train them. But also, I think it goes beyond in terms of we have a focus on charitable initiatives, local programs that we're going to try to assist. It is our hope, as I'm sure, with every business that you bring into the city, that we can generate, revenue, that we can create, great employment for residents of the city. But I think also, we want to develop the city in terms of this charitable work and in terms of what we can give, not just from impact fees, but in other ways. We think that this project really will impact the neighborhood, bring a lot of great employees in, and have a positive impact on the city all around. And so with that, our last slide, community benefits. I've talked a little bit about this already. Increased tax base. This is going to be a great real estate project. It will create a beautiful building, quite frankly. You'll have annual impact fee payments, charitable giving, and significant job creation for the city. And with that, we thank you, and I'm going to stop screen sharing, and we're happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Silverman. And just as an aside, before we get into testimony, Mr. Alinsky, I know you alluded to the Boston Marathon, and I just want to be the first to just thank you for your work in seeing the community through. As a BC alum, and with the marathon going through my actual school, I just wanted to point that out. So, Madam Clerk, I will ask at this time, have we received any testimony in favor of those who have responded?
We've received a letter from the East Springfield Neighborhood Council dated November 19, 2021 regarding Page Cultivate, which reads, to whom it may concern, Page Cultivate reached out to the East Springfield Neighborhood Council and did a full presentation at the East Springfield Neighborhood Council Board and Police meeting on March 16, 2021. This meeting was fully advertised and conducted via Zoom and Facebook Live. The Page Cultivate team introduced themselves and responded to questions from the board and the general public via Zoom and Facebook Live. In addition, the Neighborhood Council participated in 2 fully advertised community outreach meetings, one held in March and the other in November. The Page Cultivate team attended and provided information as appropriate. The project has been carefully reviewed and the proposal appears complete and the site appropriate. The East Springfield Neighborhood Council does not oppose this proposal. Page Cultivate has indicated that they intend to be participatory members of the East Springfield neighborhood as we work to protect, improve, and preserve quality of life. Sincerely, Kathleen Brown, President.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Was that the only letter received?
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone on the call who would like to speak in favor of this that signed up? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, have we received anything in opposition?
We have not.
All right. So with that, I will then turn it over to the council for any questions for the petitioner at this time.
Mr. President, Attorney Brian Shea, I had actually signed up to speak in opposition to this petition. And
oh, yes. Mr. Shea, yeah, let me rewind that. I actually did receive notice from the office on that, so I will allow you time at this moment to speak in opposition. If you would just get your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brian Shea, my business address is 430 Main Street, Suite 3, Agawam, Massachusetts. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to just mention that I've had Page Cultivate's selection for an HCA, in focus for myself for quite some time. I have represented 2 applicants in this last round of licensing cannabis, adult use cannabis applicants in this year, last year. And I was just, the reason why it came to my attention is because I recognized the pitfalls in the zoning compliance for Page Cultivate, at least as far as their initial application was submitted. The response to the request for proposal required that an applicant provide a comprehensive analysis as to how they comply with the zoning requirements. I had written a series of letters beginning in June, the first June 7th, the second June 14th, and the third June 21st. In my first letter, I highlighted that Page cultivates the area, the site that they actually have violated two separate areas, the buffer zone requirement, which for this type of facility is 250 feet. Our analysis indicated that they were within 246 feet of a residence on the Page Boulevard side, and they were within 118 feet on the rear part of the parcel where it butts Goulion Street. Those residents would have been on Monrovia. So they clearly were well within or encroached within the buffer zone that would be required for a cultivation facility. And as I highlighted this, I had requested that the city.
Can you hear me?
Hi.
I'm sorry. Whoever that is, can you please mute yourself?
Thank you, Mr. President. So as I received no response to my June 7th letter, I followed up with a second letter on June 14th, highlighting the same information, requesting that somebody from the procurement office engage me and explain to me this oversight as to how this particular applicant could have been selected, knowing that they were in clear violation of the zoning requirements. And within the course of that June 14th letter and the June 21st letter, Page Cultivate, or the owner of the site for which Page Cultivate is located, had recorded a new site plan, which would appear on its basis to bring this particular site within compliance of the 250-foot buffer zone. But the problem is that the RFP process required us to be in compliance at the time that these applications were submitted in March. Their site plan, the revision of their site plan, which potentially could put them in compliance, was not recorded and prepared until June, after they had actually been selected by the city of Springfield to receive their HCA, which to me was alarming. So now you have somebody who is clearly in violation. They go out and they submit a revised plan, which would potentially bring them within compliance, and it seems to just be ignored by the city. And I've sat through some of the audit subcommittee meetings that Councilor Hurst had organized, and was surprised that we've gotten to the point where we are now, where these people are about to be awarded a special permit and allowed to operate a facility when their application failed to comply while others did, one of which was the one that I had prepared and submitted. And I raised this a number of times and it seems to be ignored. I would highlight that within your packet on page 53, which is the site plan for Page Cultivate, is their parking area, which abuts the Page Boulevard, the road on Page Boulevard. And directly across the street, some 50 to 75 feet, would be a residence. That parking area is nothing but an extension of their site. That is an area in which they are going to continue to operate in. There's no parking on lot 2 on their plan.
Mr. Shea, are you there? Mr. Shea? We might have lost Mr. Shea, who was, of course, speaking in opposition. But I will allow an opportunity to rebut, and then we can get into questions for the petitioner from the council. So, Mr. Silverman, please.
Thank you. I think Mr. Shea somewhat overstates what the RFP said. And just so we're clear, your RFP is very similar to a lot of other RFPs that I've dealt with across the state, where there's a preliminary group that is making a selection, But all that selection is, it's based on a lot of different criteria, is to go forward to the next step, which is permitting. And a lot happens between that initial selection and permitting. Things change. It happens in every marijuana project I've been on. There's no project that goes in where every single detail stays exactly the same. And in fact, your RFP makes very clear that the approval by the city does not mean they approve of every aspect of this. All it means is you get to negotiate an HCA, which is what happened. You still have to go through a significant permitting process. And if there are problems at that point with buffers or such, presumably, as in most projects, you get a chance to try to address those, mitigate the problems, fix the problems. That's all that's going on here. If you're going to require every single applicant to have a perfect project that requires no change right at the beginning of the RFP, I'm not sure you'll get anybody approved. So I think, the RFP that was sent out by the city seems to anticipate that not everything will be exactly perfect. You'll still have to go through this permitting process. And that's what we're here to do. And I believe that all of the problems have been fixed at this point. So that's what I would say in rebuttal.
All right, thank you, Mr. Silverman. Right now, I'll turn it to the council for any questions for the petitioner. Councilor Whitfield.
Mr. Williams, I'm sorry, I'm back. Did I just finish?
Mr. Shea, yeah, I apologize, but what can happen is if a counselor so sees it, they can give you the floor to finish or state what you need to. So I will turn it over to Councilor Whitfield at this time first.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. And I do want to finish hearing what Attorney Shea has to say. I just wanted to address something that Mr. Silverman said, because I don't know what they did throughout the rest of the state, but it was clear in our RFP process that if you didn't meet certain requirements, you don't move forward. I was on the committee, and I'm going to say what happened in round one, because if that's the case, every single applicant will have the opportunity to change what they didn't have correct. That makes logical sense, right? Every single applicant that didn't get something correct would have had the opportunity to make those changes. So I just don't like when people, that was like, to me, playing us a little bit, acting like we're ignorant. I was on the selection committee. I know the things that had to be in place. One of them was clearly zoning. Other applicants would not move forward if their zoning was not correct. The zoning requirement is something that was put forward by the city council. So that is a slap in our face to say, oh, your zoning isn't right. Just come change it and come back. Because everybody else throughout the city has done that. If that's the case, everybody should have the opportunity to make changes to their application and come back and resubmit it. That is not the case. That was not the process. I don't know what happened throughout the rest of the state. In the city of Springfield, that was not the process. And I definitely want to clarify that, because we are not ignorant. We have a process for a reason, and it was a process of elimination. And one of the requirements was to make sure that the zoning was correct. If it was not correct, then you were disqualified.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Walsh, followed by Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to make sure that I'm not muted. I have to say that I'm troubled by some of the issues that Attorney Shea has brought up, and I'm going to ask Councilor Whitfield. I think we're all aware, but you were the City Council representative on the selection committee. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilor.
Okay, so talking about people who might have violated the buffer, I mean, if people did that, were they rejected?
Yes, Councilor. Traditionally, so when we were in the selection process, it was brought to our attention that this particular company didn't meet the zoning requirements. I'm not talking about the buffer on the back end, I'm talking about on the front end. It was brought up by Phil Dromey that they could be 4 or 5 feet within the buffer. And we were told they were going to do a survey and resubmit that survey to make sure that if they met the requirements or not. We never received the survey. I asked for the survey on several occasions, never got it. And then I was asking Theo, and by the time I asked him the final time, he was on his way to another job. So we never got a survey for clarification that they met the buffer. The next thing I know, there's changes in the application, there's A&R reports, all these things that I wasn't familiar with. And so my question was like, how is it that this particular organization gets to make these changes, but other applicants were not allowed to do that? Yes, there will be some changes to some of the organization structures in a business, like it may change ownership, it may require another speak out, like some time frame may expire where they have to do another public speak out, but not the zoning, not the zoning. That is a ordinance that the city council put in place, and no other applicant that didn't meet the zoning requirements move forward in the process.
Whoa. I'm a little bit concerned there might be some sort of fairness issue here. So how does someone get approved if they don't meet the requirements?
That was the mayor's decision. We put forward, so it was a scoring system. They scored well. I was concerned from the beginning. I expressed it to the entire committee that I didn't feel comfortable with them being on the list to move forward. I expressed it from the beginning because I did not understand how anyone that didn't meet the zoning requirements were able to move forward. I asked for the survey over and over again. I never got it. I got the emails to prove that I asked for that information, and they were on the list. All we did was we scored them based on the criteria, and then we moved the list over to the mayor, and he selected the applicants that moved forward. We never suggested any of the applicants that move forward. We just said, here's our scores, you make the decision. And so when I seen them on the list without getting the information that I requested, I was concerned about that. But again, he made the decision. And then we got an A&R report, and I didn't really understand how that whole thing worked. But I know I was in round 1 and round 2, that anyone that didn't meet the buffer, that didn't meet the zoning requirements, the buffer did not move forward.
May I ask Attorney Shea, who'd you send all those letters to that went unanswered?
I sent the letter, was addressed to the mayor's office, to Theo Theophilus, and I copied in the city council through your clerk's office. Okay. Well, I'd be happy at this meeting to send them all again.
Well, I think my colleagues may know, Councilor Whitfield and I, we do not always see eye to eye. But as someone who went to Denver with my colleague, Councilor Hurst and Councilor Ramos, former Councilor Ramos and former Councilor Gomez, I mean, we put a lot of time and effort into developing our zoning ordinance. And I'm insulted by the description of it, that we didn't expect people to adhere to it. And this raises an awful lot of questions for me.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Davila.
And I don't like the fact that other people who didn't meet the qualification were disqualified. To me, that means you got to reopen the whole process because perhaps you were not fair.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before I use my 3 minutes, just a quick point of information, sir. Did you say you want to allow Mr. Attorney Shea to speak again, or if we see time?
Councilor Davila, if there's something specific that you would like Attorney Shea to elaborate on, you can give him the floor.
Okay, very well. Before I do, Mr. President, because I do want to hear what Attorney Shea has to say, and I will send my questions to my second round, sir. But before I do that, just a quick information, sir, before we start using our 3 times. I apologize. I realized there's an unidentified participant on the call, sir, with ending in 1110. I know we had talked about security before.
Thank you, Councilor Davila, for seeing that. The individual with phone number 413-486-1110, can you please identify yourself? Again, individual with number 413-486-11.
Hello?
Yes, can
Hello?
you please? Yes, can you please identify
Yeah,
yourself?
it's Attorney Frank Fitzgerald.
All right. Oh, thank you, Frank. Appreciate it.
My business is done with the council. I'm just happen to be listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney Fitzgerald. So, Mr. President, I will cede my 3 minutes to Attorney Brian Shea. Attorney Shea, please.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. So I just want to, there was a couple things. I was trying to highlight the parking area to the council. I think that this site as a cultivation facility is still in violation of the buffer zone requirement. They still need to be 250 feet from a residence or a residential district. And the extension of the parcel of lot 2 is extended by the parking area, for which they've recorded a notice of lease, and they're clearly going to use that as part of their facility operations. That's an extension of it. We all had to describe our parking area and within our responses to these RFQ packages, and they're clearly perhaps have cured the buffer line issue if we're looking at property lines, but their property line is differentiated or not differentiated by the extension of the parking area. Their operation, the boundaries of their operation encompasses that parking area, which is probably no more than 60 feet from the closest residence, which would be directly across the street. The other thing that's more confusing, and I would ask for the council to think about this and spend some time on it, is the buffer zone requirement requires that they be 250 feet from a residence or they be 250 feet from a residential district. In this particular area where this property sits, the property is business, part of the property is business B, part of it is industrial. Across the street is residence C. In your zoning, and I can give you, it's in Article 3, Section 4, subsection 30, defines the boundaries of a residential district. So where's the boundary line of this residential district? We would need to determine that to see if they're 250 feet from the residential district. And your zoning ordinance says that if it's unclear where the boundary line is, or if a residential district of the boundary line is separated by a roadway, it's the middle of the roadway. So they may have measured, and when they revised their latest plan in June, they may have measured 250 feet from the residential boundary line to their boundary line and barely made that 250 feet mark, but they clearly didn't make it from the boundary line of the residential district, which is the middle of this road. So, one of the things that in the process of completing this application is that you have to go out and do community outreach. You have to go out and tell the town what you're doing. This is my plan. This is what we are going to do. And their plan changed after they did that. They did it in March, and now they say they did it in November. I actually tried to attend the November meeting, and I wasn't able to log on. I came home early. I sat in my Zoom. I logged in, and I never got into the meeting. And I still have the screenshots showing that, that at 20 minutes of 7 that I couldn't get into the meeting. So I just think that this was supposed to be open and fair. As an applicant representing somebody who applied for an application for cultivation, and knowing what we went through, and I represented a different applicant in the first round, and I was one of those applicants that my application didn't get reviewed because it didn't conform to the zoning. And now to see somebody that doesn't conform to the zoning, and I was happy to hear Mr. Silverman admit that there were problems with their application. I think that's what he said, as far as it related to zoning. They're about to get awarded an HCA. This is a major opportunity for an applicant in the city of Springfield to be able to participate in this. I think it's not fair for somebody that wasn't qualified to receive the benefit of it.
Thank you, Attorney Shea. Right now, I'll pass it to Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. Phil, can you speak to how we got here?
I guess I will attempt to. Again, all the applications were reviewed. I was one of, I think, 11 or 12 folks that reviewed the application. In this particular application, Councilor Whitfield is correct. There was discussions, about whether or not the applicant was within the 250 feet on the Page Boulevard side. And I was really kind of zoomed in on those particular residences. Using my GIS, it's not, an accurate measurement, and using my tool on the computer came to about 346, 47, 48 feet, depending on how I clicked on it. So there was a question about whether or not they were in that buffer. To my oversight, and I certainly accept that, I was under the assumption that everything to the north was industrial A. So it was only after I was informed, I've forgotten that Monrovia Street had come down so low, it was clear that the original application was in violation of those particular homes, because it was within 250 feet of the residential district and the residential homes on Monrovia Street. I then informed Councilor Pakula and Julie Steiner and also Theo. And then we went on to discuss then the A&R plan came in where they moved their property line and were able to submit an A&R plan that moved the property line, which got them outside of the 250-foot buffer. I know Attorney Pakula had written a memo about the particular reasonings to allow the A&R plan, but I'd have to defer to Ed on that. Just to be clear too, I want to, in round one, it was, and again, I don't mean in any way to dispute you, Councilor Whitfield. I'm just going by my interpretation of how in round one, we did specifically, if you weren't within, if we found that you were in violation of the zoning, the applications weren't scored. There was one particular application on Main Street in Indian Orchard where there was an issue about whether they were within 200 or 500 feet of a school, and it ended up being a daycare. So we actually did not score them. In this round, I specifically asked that question because in addition to zoning, there were other requirements that an applicant had to have. One of them was they had to have held their community outreach meeting. A number of the applicants hadn't. So I had asked Attorney Theo at that point whether these were going to be scored or not. And he told me that, the opinion was we should score them all and move forward. So that's how I did it. I don't know, Councilor Whitfield, whether you had the same interpretation, but so I don't believe in the other applications, I don't recall that any were specifically disqualified for zoning. So I just wanted to, that's again, my interpretation. I don't know if Councilor Whitfield I think there was only one other one, the delivery one where there was specifically one residential housing unit within 250 feet, but
So Phil, and thank you, Phil. How did we get to the point where there were communications between the team and the individuals submitted the application that they were in violation, and if they wanted to get in violation, they needed to submit an A&R plan? How did those discussions occur? Well, we weren't in communication with the actual applicants, right?
No, I mean, I had talked to Attorney Theo, and we had talked to, I forget who I'd actually spoken to, but there was discussions about whether or not they could move their property line. And I indicated very clearly in those discussions that I could talk about an A&R plan. I could not in any way refer to whether or not this was a change to their RFP. So that's where I made that perfectly clear to everyone I spoke to, that an A&R plan is one process. Whether or not it's a change to the RFP is a different conversation that I had no authority whatsoever to have those conversations about. So
yeah, so that's kind of where my issue comes in. It seems to me that if somebody doesn't meet the zoning, even if you made the initial mistake, once you realize the mistake, it would seem to me that they would in turn be disqualified. And so if there were future communications with the actual applicant, that to me seems to be extremely problematic and potentially compromises the entire process. I don't know and I'm not saying you had them, Phil. It just seems to me that somebody has to communicate with these individuals saying that they're in violation of the zoning ordinance. At which time, but I'm sorry, Phil.
No, I just want to say, I just wanted to be clear that
I can't hear you, Councilor Hurst. I don't know why. Maybe.
Okay.
I hate to ask you to be louder, but I didn't catch everything you said.
All right. Let's see.
Again, I'm just going to go back to again, my interpretation is you wouldn't be disqualified. That could obviously could have reflected in somebody's score. So I don't want to say that the scores may have stayed the same, but you know, I don't know.
What does our zoning ordinance say, Phil? Does it say you have to meet certain qualifications?
Well, I mean, the zoning ordinance specifically talks about buffer zones. Yeah.
Buffer zones. So if we don't meet the buffer zones, you don't meet the zoning ordinance. What happens? I mean, the zoning ordinance seems to be pretty specific. Yeah. In terms of if you don't meet it, then you can't move forward. It would seem to me. I mean, am I missing something here?
Well, again, they technically meet it now. So, you know, it's
now.
Well,
Okay.
Counselors,
Right.
I need to defer to the lawyers in the room. I'm just telling you.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor
Councilor President, can I just wanted to address what Phil said, sir. If that's okay. All right. I scored every application in round one. What happened was at first we were like, oh, they didn't meet zoning, we don't have to score them. Then we went to another meeting and they said, no, we need to score every single one, even if they met zoning or not. So I don't know what Phil did. I know what Tracy Whitfield did. And what I did was scored every single application. There was not even, because there was a question if we were looking at cultivation the first round, because we did get a couple of cultivation applications. And so first they told me, we're not going to worry about cultivation right now. And I was like, but we got 2 cultivation applications. So then they said, well, we're just going to score every application and then we'll move forward from there. So I'm not sure what Phil did, but I know that I scored every single application in the first round. So I just wanted to clarify what I did. I don't know what everyone else did. In addition, Mr. President, I wanted to say I feel a little bit insulted that we worked so hard on a zoning ordinance. I remember sitting there going back and forth on what the buffer requirements were going to be. So I really feel insulted. I'm sorry, Mr. Silverman, but I felt that was an insult to our intelligence and to our process that you said things are made to be broken, basically, or things are made to be changed. I didn't like that statement on what everybody else did throughout Massachusetts. I'm not asking you for a response, but I didn't like that. And I want to express it again. That was an insult to our intelligence. That was an insult to our process. That was an insult to the ordinance that we put in place. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Mr. Silverman, I see that your hand is up, but I want to get through the councilors who have been waiting to speak. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, if I may, can I ask Attorney Brian Shea a quick question? Just a clarification of something I thought he said.
Sure.
Yeah. Attorney Shea, did you say that you apply for a permit?
Yes, Councilor Davila, I did.
You were rejected?
So we weren't selected.
Okay, you were selected for what reason, sir?
I don't know. That seems to be a mystery to me. We have a qualified applicant. We have a wonderful location. We are compliant with zoning.
Were you in compliance with the buffering, with the zoning and the buffer zone from the get-go?
In round 2, yes.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Shea. Mr. President, I was wondering if it's possible at all, if we can get a copy of those applicants that were rejected and the reason, particularly if, the copy of the applicants who were rejected for buffer zone violations and how much or what was the square feet that they were proposing at the time. I think that's important for us to know. Is that something that we can hopefully try to get, Mr. President?
I can't promise that, Councilor Davila, that would come straight.
I will.
strictly from the committee and or the administration. So
Okay.
it
I will be
be
emailing the committee, Mr. President, to get that information, because I think that's a critical, because I have to say, I have to agree with Councilor Walsh that there seems to be apparently some fairness issues here. I see that Attorney Picula has his hand raised to enlighten us in a second, but if I could just ask to the proponent, Mr. Silverman, are you still on the call with us, sir?
I am.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your presentation. Mr. Silverman, my head is spinning right now, so hopefully you can help me, sir. We'll agree about fairness. And we spent a little time here. I remember, sir, at the time I didn't have the pressure, the honor to be in the council, but I remember sitting in the city council chambers for 4 hours in the wooden chairs until this, in the marathon session, until this got passed. So if all I remember is property line to property line, property line to property line. It's like a mantra. And so if I understand correctly, what you say was, at the time you did not meet the buffer zone, but now you do, because you were advised, if I'm not mistaken, by this law department, that there was what called a A&R submitted, and you move the property line, right, which puts you into compliance now after you were selected. And so my first question to you is, the new building, is that going to be in relationship to the actual shooting range there now that from the city? Is that going to be closer to the North Star side or closer? I couldn't really pinpoint where that building is going to be.
And Tim St. Germain, I think, can probably address that better than I can. Is Tim still on the call?
Please, if I could.
I am. And the question is with regards to it'll be, I don't know how to locate it, because it's directly behind the Springfield Police Trainings facility.
Okay, so it's not going to be closer to Page Boulevard. It's going to be farther away from Page Boulevard, basically.
Yeah, the building itself is
it's going to be, yeah.
It's probably 300 or 350 feet from Page Boulevard. I don't have the actual measurement, but it's it's further away, and it's
all right. Thank you.
The facility. Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Fullerman, just to be clear, you're just purely cultivation. You are not doing any delivery, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Fullerman, how, and actually, thank you, Mr. Fullerman. My question is for Phil. My next question, Phil, correct me if I'm mistaken or not. So what I'm thinking right now is that we are going to have a 299 Page Boulevard, in which we know it has many, many different parcels, different lots. And we just approved one of the lots in another petition for a change of ownership. Are we saying that we are going to have one address, which is 2 Page Boulevard, which encompass many entities and many entities, which is one big property line, and we're creating another set of property line for the proponent? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
And we're doing this after we knew that he was not in compliance, and we allow him, well, when I say we, I mean the administration, to change the line to be in compliance, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to Attorney Picula, but yes, that's
okay.
Thank you. There was an A&R plan submitted.
Thank you, Phil. Mr. President, I would love to turn my time over now to, if possible. Actually, I think Hanka to hers, but I would love to hear from Attorney Picula to enlighten us on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. If I can knock the next two folks out at the same time, that'd be great. Councilor Hurst, can you give Attorney Picula the floor at some point?
Absolutely. Right after I ask these last couple of questions, and then I think the solicitor probably should take the floor. Mr. Silverman, how did you know that you were in violation of the zoning ordinance?
And I have to apologize. I came in after that. By the time I came in to represent my client, the property line had the A&R had already gone through. I don't have any answer for you.
So who can speak to that question? Somebody's got to be able to speak to that question. And if not, maybe you can come prepared next week to speak to that question, because I think for my own personal edification, that's important. So if we could just find out what transpired and what that dialogue was like and who initiated it, and you know how you all found out that you were in violation. I'd imagine that there probably were a number of other folks who could have used some constructive criticism to their applications who may or may not have received it from the administration. So I would like to know that. And then Mr. Shea, you said that they still may be in violation of the zoning ordinance as you see it.
I do, Councilor Hurst, and again, thank you for the time. If you look at page 7 of their slide deck, they depict their parking area. That parking area is part of their operation. Whether I'm leasing the property or I'm buying it, that's my site. That's my cultivation facility, and their parking area is part of that site, which still encroaches on the buffer zone. What they did when they changed this plan, which I find to be a significant and substantial change, this A&R plan that they had recorded, they narrowed the access off of Guyon Street to 25 feet. They carved out a little triangle on the western edge of that, which is closer to Page Boulevard. And they deeded it over to the property for which your training facility sits on, which from what I understand is a parcel that the city of Springfield pays the taxes on. So they've overburdened that area, taking away, maybe a sliver of the tax base that they're talking about that they're going to generate on this parcel to try to reduce or to try to extend that 250 feet from the property line on Page Boulevard to the property line of Lot 2 on their plan. But remember, beyond Lot 2 is this leased area that they have for their parking that goes from Lot 2 all the way out to Page Boulevard. That's still part of their operation, still within the 250, way within the 250 feet buffer zone. The other portion of it that I try to explain is that your ordinance says it can't be within 250 feet of a residence or 250 feet of a residential district. I believe that the residential district, the residential boundary line from residence C to business B across the street from Page Boulevard is the middle of Page Boulevard. That's what your zoning ordinance says. That if it's unclear where the exact location of a residential boundary line is, and that residential district runs along a road, it's the middle of the road. It's not property line to property line. In this particular case, it's a shorter distance. It's property line to the boundary line of the residential district.
Thank you, Attorney Shea. Phil, can you speak to that?
Well, I mean, first to the boundary line, to me, the boundary line is not in question. The boundary line of the residence B, by the way, follows the back of sidewalk along the public way of Page Boulevard. It is not the middle of the road. When the road is discontinued, or the zoning lines then come in. But to me, there is no argument about where the boundary of the property line is. It's on our legal zoning map. It's on our city's GIS, and it can be measured as such. And that's what I used when I was originally measuring. With regards to the parking
lot, yes.
Yeah, with regards to the parking, again, we had a number of discussions about that because that was a question. However, it was determined that parking didn't constitute, and I'm using quotes, the use. The building is on a separate parcel. So we did have that conversation because it came in play. It came in play in round 1, and it came in play in round 2 about whether parking constitutes the use. So that's how it ended up as far as my interpretation was, that parking didn't constitute the use. The actual building was on a separate lot. So that's how I recollect the conversations.
Okay. So I'll probably follow up at some point in time. But my last question before we turn it over to the attorney is how many points were allocated for the zoning, for meeting zoning requirements in the actual scoring rubric? Does anyone remember? And maybe that's not just for you, Phil.
Well, I mean, again, I don't think there were specific points. It was whether you got an HA or an A or a NA or a, a U, so what the point system was, I don't, unless Councilor Whitfield knows that, I would just, you would determine whether you got a highly advantage, or I don't know what the points were attached to that.
So, but there was a section for whether you met the zoning requirement or not.
Correct. I think it was part of a larger section, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And certainly I'll defer to the solicitor. I'm sure he would like to chime in at this point.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst, and Councilor Whitfield will take the solicitor before, if that's okay. I'm sorry, Attorney Pakula.
Thank you. I hope I can try to clear some things up so we can move along a little. Number one, this proposal, just like all of the proposals in round one and round two, were part of an audit. And as you recall, there was some scoring issues with regard to some of the proposals, but not this one. It was very clear that this one scored far and above the other proposal that Attorney Shea is speaking of. Number two, when we look at parking with a proposal, it's like if you look at Eastfield Mall, if we went by the parking abuts other residential properties. We don't look at that if there's a separate lot. So just like these are lots that were drawn by the owner. And we've had discussions of an ANR, ANR stands for approval not required. It's a planning term. And it means that the city cannot prevent someone from changing a subdivision on their property. Our approval, the planning board's approval, is not required to make that type of change. So if a proponent comes in and says, here is a proposal and here are the lines that we've subdivided, and we say, gee, that doesn't seem to meet our requirements, they are free to redraw those lines. And we can't control where they're withdrawn. Approval is not required. And so if the new plan of the subdivision does fit within that, that's the end of the analysis. Another point that has been brought up is it doesn't meet the zoning, This met the zoning. It zoned industrial. That was the zoning that this was involved with. Now, to refine that, an issue has come up as to the buffer zone. As I explained, the buffer zone was movable based on where the owner subdivided the land, which was totally in the owner's control, not the city's. In the first round, an issue came up with the buffer zone where, as I believe Councilor Whitfield pointed out, there was a school, or that's what it was described. I had been contacted by Attorney Theocles saying, hey, this property abuts a building where there's a kindergarten. Well, that's not within the owner's control. That's the abutter's property next door. And so if the abutting property had a kindergarten, that's something that can't be changed. And we have no control over it, and neither does the owner, unlike an A&R plan. Now, in that situation, after the phase one had been changed, the proponent of the marijuana facility had contacted us and said, hey, there's no kindergarten next door. It's a daycare center. And what we found out was, yes, there was some kindergartners there, but it wasn't a kindergarten class. They weren't licensed as a school. They just had some daycare clients that were in kindergarten and would come there after school. So we reached out, or we had the proponent who did not receive the permit reach out to us and say, hey, here's the information saying there's no kindergarten next door. So what we did is we went back and submitted the application to say, because as it was noted, that one wasn't ranked. And we went back and said, let's re-rank them, including this one. And it came back and it still wasn't a top proposal. So we said, we're sorry. In the first round, it looked as if you were next door to kindergarten. At least that was the information that we were provided. Turns out you were not. We will have everyone grade this. And when they did, it still wasn't a top proposal. And that was the end of it. In this round, I was approached by Phil, who said, hey, look at this ANR. And I looked at it, I said, seems like it's in the buffer. Then I was approached and said, we've got a new ANR. I said, this one clears it up. And both myself, Attorney Steiner, and Attorney Theocles agreed that our approval was not required, and they had every right to do that. Whether it's an RFP or not didn't matter. That's the type of change, a change of a site plan involving ANR, approval not required, is the type of thing that comes up in all kinds of developments where there's changes made to a plot plan. And it's typically handled in our site plan review. It's not something that would be a disqualifying cause. So I didn't talk to anybody other than Attorney Steiner and Attorney Theocles, but it's pretty clear to me that the way this happened was totally legitimate. And someone got a problem with that?
Well, I totally disagree with you.
I got a problem with it because first,
right.
if you want to know, but I'll wait my turn.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I would have preferred that first. I appreciate that. Thank you. Counselor Whitfield, I will pass it to you, followed by Counselor Davila.
And that wasn't me chuckling, but since you asked, if anybody have a problem, here's my problem. First, number one, they didn't beat the other cultivation application by so much, 1 point. 1 point. And the reason that I know that is because I called Theo and I said, oh, I gave you the incorrect, my incorrect scoring sheet. Had I given him the correct one, they would have tied. And I know that because I know that. And if we were on a stand, I will get on a stand with my hand on the Bible and say that. And if Theo got on the stand, I hope that he would say the same, because that's exactly what happened. It was 1 point. They did not beat this cultivation other company by a whole bunch of points. So I just want to clear that up. Secondly, the reason that I said I have a problem with what happened is the same reason that Counselor Hirsch said, how were they informed to know to go change their site plan? How they didn't just come out of the air and was like, oh, we made this mistake. After the review process, after we were chosen, let's go and change it. No. You can shake your head, but
yeah, I'm going to shake my head.
This is
there was a letter from Brian Shea that said
we have an ethical.
They're in violation.
We have an ethical duty to say what's right, to say what's true, and Somebody
You are
tipped them off.
absolutely right. We do.
Somebody tipped them off.
And I'm saying
I
it
want to
right
know,
now.
just like Counselor Hurst,
Attorney
who
Pakula.
it was. How did they find out this information? I'm not asking you, Attorney Pakula, a specific question. I'm telling you things how I see it. So I'm not asking for a response, and I'm tired of people responding before a question is asked. Please don't do that. I didn't do it to you. You asked the question. You said, does anybody have a problem with this? And I said, yes. That's a question. I haven't asked you one. I'm telling you, they were 1 point away in application process, and I'm telling you, they changed and did an A&R after someone else. There's no way they're just gonna wake up one day and say, oh, let's go change this. So I want to know the same, matter of fact, I don't need to know the same answer that Counselor Hurst needs to know, because I know how I'm voting. My last comment, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Woodfield. Counselor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, if I'm going to say what's on my mind, sir, if I could. In my opinion, this A&R makes a mockery of the ordinance. The ordinance that was written years ago, and the council spent all that time writing for the betterment of Springfield, both on the economic side and to protect the residential zones, is, in my opinion, this is just a mockery that is happening with this A&R business. Although I understand everything that has been said with the A&R, I don't see anything that this is putting our ordinance a mockery. I keep saying it. With that being said, if I may, Attorney Pakula, sir, if I may, does A&R, it's a state law, correct?
Correct.
So in terms of a process, does A&R apply? When does it come into effect? Because if it comes to like now, in my opinion, sir, with all due respect, it's making a mockery out of the ordinance and out of the city council. So does that mean that A&R can be pulled anytime they wish and they want to have this here and there and say we're going to annul what the city council did with the A&R?
Your question makes no sense.
Well, please, excuse me, Attorney Pakula, excuse me, sir, if I may, you have said that to me before. I will ask you to respect my question because I am not, Mr. President, if I may, well, respect Attorney Pakula, please do not speak to me that way. I'm asking a question in the best terms I can. So I expect a response from you accordingly, sir.
I appreciate the comment, but as the chair of this body and as the one facilitating this meeting, I do not respect the tone that Attorney Pakula you have in talking to your colleagues that are still your colleagues.
Thank you.
That was never the case before, and it should not be the case now. So if we can proceed with some decorum and respect, I would really, really appreciate that.
Counselor, an A&R plan has been part of subdivision control for decades. It's not something new. And as I said, we do not have a right to deny someone a right to change their lot lines under A&R, where approval is not required. We would be facing.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
We would be facing problems if we denied them the right to change a subdivision plan where the A&R statute came into play.
I see. So in terms of Attorney Pakula, when does the A&R comes into play, before or after?
I apologize if I don't understand, but and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let me just, if I may, when you say, when does it come into play? This is how I'm interpreting this, all right?
Yeah.
I believe what you're asking is when the RFP was put out, should someone be allowed to change an A&R after the RFP is out and they've already submitted an original proposal?
Right.
And the answer is yes. They should be allowed to make that change. And the reason is no one is prejudiced by someone changing their own lot lines.
Okay, and are all the other proponents, are the proponents informed that they have the right over A&R if they don't meet the square footage?
That's not something we discuss with them. That's
Okay.
something for a private owner to talk about with their own attorney
Okay. All right,
or
got
with
you.
their own engineers.
Got you.
It's
Got
not something,
you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
it's not something that I discussed with anyone other than
Got you.
Attorney Steiner and Attorney Theocles.
All right, thank
And
you. Go ahead. No, go ahead. My apologies. Go ahead, Dr. Piccola. Go ahead.
all I'm trying to point out is, I know Attorney Shea wrote some letters. I'm not sure if I've seen them or not, but if he sent them to all of the city councilors and the mayor, and I don't know who else he sent them, and I'm sure the proponent here probably saw them. And I would suspect that they're probably reacting to any sort of opposition that they had.
Right. In terms of transparency, first time that I meet Attorney Brian Shea, I have not seen any correspondence from him myself. I am very concerned, Mr. President. I am trying to, my head is spinning. I'm trying to make sense of this. I'm just very concerned that we're creating precedents. I'm concerned that we might opening up the city to litigation. I understand Attorney Piccola's legal interpretation, which I respect, but I do have concerns. Attorney Piccola, I have always appreciated your input, your candor, your passion, sir, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor, just as a reminder, we've had extensive conversation on this and we are approaching the 10 o'clock hour. So I would just indulge councilors to perhaps continue this item for further conversation next time along. But Councilor Hurst, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And to Councilor Davila's point, I think it's inevitable that we've opened ourselves up to potential litigation, unfortunately. However, just going back to one of the points you made, Solicitor Piccola, you said nobody was prejudiced by the adjustment in the lot lines, correct?
Correct.
In the A&R plan. And so can you explain to me a little bit more what you mean by prejudice?
Well, it really doesn't affect anyone other than this owner. By changing their lot lines, they do by exercising the rights that they have to do with their own private property.
So if he doesn't change the A&R plan, what occurs? Solicitor.
If he tries to go forward with an A&R plan that's within the buffers, that shows within the buffer zone, it's not going to be approved.
So
but as I
it's
said,
not going to be. Hold on. It's not going to be approved, correct? And if it's not approved, then what ultimately would have happened? The likelihood is high that the person. The likelihood is high. I'm sorry, that was a rhetorical question. The likelihood is high that the person who finished 1 point less than this particular applicant probably would have advanced. And so I think one could definitely argue that folks were prejudiced by allowing them to amend their A&R plan. Now, we can certainly disagree or agree to disagree, but I think you might be a bit off there. Last question, Solicitor. A&R plan, substantial change, right? How does a substantial change play into the A&R plan and you being able to revise your A&R plan?
Nothing whatsoever.
Okay. All right. So I'll follow up with that at the next meeting. Thank you, Solicitor. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Are there any other questions at this time for the petitioner? Councilor Letterman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to request prior to the next hearing on this matter that we have forwarded to us the rubric that was utilized in the selection process and the scores from all applicants. Thank you.
Councilor Letterman, if I can just ask the solicitor would that need to come by way of a public records request?
You've asked me, I don't have them. I can certainly find them. I don't think you want, it sounds to me like you'd like a list of where people scored, and I'll find that and get it to you. And in terms of the quote rubric, it was typical, as Phil had said, HA, highly advantageous, A, advantageous, NA, not advantageous. And each one of those, you were given an amount of points. So that was explained all in the audit. And as I said, and Councilor Whitfield, I didn't mean any disrespect, and all I said was this one was scored higher than the other one. I did not mean to imply that they missed it by a mile. If you took it that way, I'm sorry. But in this situation, this was the highest scoring proposal.
Thank you. I'll look forward to reviewing that.
Councilor Hurst.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what it is that Councilor Letterman requested and what it is that the solicitor is going to provide. I've certainly put in a public records request for all documentation and have yet to receive anything. So I'd love to know what can be provided to us or what is going to be provided to us based off of what the solicitor thinks we can have access to before next meeting.
I thought he asked for the rubric and the listing.
Yeah, the rubric and the outcome, the rubric and the scores.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not aware of Councilor Hurst's records request, but I think we should have access to everything at all times. So I'd like access to as much as possible as we consider all of the proposals and the HCAs after that. I have not yet seen it myself. I'll say that I have not yet seen it myself. So I would like to.
Attorney Hurst, or if there's some public records thing that you're looking for, let me know and I will see what the status of it is.
No, I've already submitted it. I think there are a lot of other folks that are waiting for that information as well. I agree with Councilor Letterman. We probably should have had it in advance of this. But as long as we get all of the information that we can possibly get our hands on to make the most informed decision moving forward, or just to provide some context, that would make sense. But yes, I have a public records request in asking for the scores, the rubric, the all information that was used in the by Auditor No to arrive at the conclusions he's arrived at. Whatever information possible that you can provide us, I'd like to have.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Whitfield, I'm going to give you the last word on this, and then I will move to entertain a motion for continuance.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you for your apology and I accept it. And I heard much, they were a much better application. I heard that in my head and I just wanted to say it was 1 point, but I do accept your apology and I appreciate that. And I make a motion to continue the item.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Motion has been made and properly seconded by Councilor Hurst. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll to continue?
On continuing item number 3, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
No.
No, Councilor Brown. Absent, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton. Absent, Councilor Whitfield.
No.
No, Councilor Williams.
Yes, the item has been continued. Thank you, Councilor Counselors, the time now is actually 10 o'clock on the dot and consistent with Rule 54. If there is any counselor that objects to continuing, then we will stop the meeting at this point, and I am more than happy to hold a special meeting to take up the items that we're not taking up tonight. But if there is no counselor that objects, we will continue. Counselor Davila.
A quick point of information, Mr. President. How many items do we have left?
I believe we have 3 items, if I'm not mistaken, but they're all related to marijuana or cannabis.
That is correct. Mr. President, if I never do this, Mr. President, but this is a very serious matter. This is good for the city. It's something that we need to consider very carefully as well, the impact that we're going to have. I think to be fair to all, so we're all fresh, I think we should continue this, but I would love to hear what my colleagues will have to say before, if I object.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Walsh.
Yes, I was just wondering myself, how many items were left, and are we going to do full justice to 3 items, all to do with marijuana? And I don't know if it's fair to discuss them at such a late time in the evening. And I'm still so upset by this last item that I'm not sure if I can actually vote on any more marijuana things until we clear up what's going on here and whether or not there was any unfairness with the other petitioner. So I'm going to say no. I'm ready to end the evening.
All right, thank you, Councilor Walsh. And prior to me just turn it over to Councilor Hurst, I will say that counselors, like I said, I'm more than happy to hold a special to take up the remainder, so that all of the items can appear on the same agenda once our next meeting happens. But Councilor Hurst, you have the floor.
Sounds like Councilor Walsh has objected and she just beat me to it. So I concur with Councilor Walsh.
All right, thank you. So with the objection that was made by Councilor Walsh, the meeting will now end. Madam Clerk, can you just be so kind to please tell me what items are remaining?
The remaining items that have not been taken up are items 4, 5, and 8, which are special permits for the adult use marijuana establishments, and also item number 9. Mr. President, just to inform you that item number 9, which is a zone change, was scheduled to be withdrawn, which is for 797 Berkshire Avenue. But we can put it on the next agenda if need be.
Not withdrawn.
We'll continue to the next meeting.
Okay, with that being said, the rule in itself handles that as all items are going to be continued. Councilor Edwards, I'll give you the floor.
May I either make a motion or a suggestion that item become the first one on the agenda? So that it's the marijuana's obviously, regardless of the applicant, will take a long time. And and one of the concerns I have with ending these meetings the way we are, that we have people coming and they're still in the queue where they may not be the first or the second one, and they could potentially be on a meeting and 10 o'clock rolls around again and they still don't get spoken. So either I would just respectfully suggest, either through motion or just through the president, that that one, which is that has already been heard, would be the first one on the agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Duly noted, and no motion is needed for that, but appreciate your comment. All right, Madam Clerk, do we have any further business before the council this evening?
We do not.
All right, councilors, we'll have a blessed evening, and guests, thank you all for joining. And for those petitioners, again, that were not heard today the first time, please be on the lookout. I'll be working with the clerk to schedule something within the next 2 weeks for you all to be heard. Thank you all.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.